Oh, hello my friends. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you are enjoying the videos. If so, please like, share and subscribe. I have something to discuss with you guys at the end of the video, so kindly watch that part at least. It's really important for me. Also, this video contains mature storytelling and detailed romantic themes. Viewer discretion is advised. Viewers are free to choose a different video if they prefer. Now, let's get back to the story. Ethan rested his head on Lily's lap as the wagons of the allied tribes began their journey northwest. They only knew that they were heading northwest and that their destination was the White Forest. If Safia's estimate were correct, it would take them 2 weeks to reach their destination. Lily was wearing Ethan's magical bracelet, passively charging it. Unlike Luna, whose strong magical powers were practically oozing out of her body during the day of the full moon, Lily could only charge the bracelet very slowly. According to her estimate, it would take her at least 2 to 3 days for the bracelet she wore to be fully charged. Fortunately, Ethan was not in a hurry to use it, so she had time to charge it up. Both of them were also briefed on the current situation. Similar to what the great chieftains thought, Lily also felt that this chain of events was quite suspicious. Although it was not impossible for orcs to ally with humans, it was still incredibly rare. Lily even thought that the humans might have struck a deal with the monsters in order to have their help to conquer the nearby tribes within the lands of Alester. As for the goblins, these monsters existed to infringe upon the territories of others. They were well known for their raids on small villages and even towns in order to steal resources as well as women to help increase their numbers. Safia also told them about the other groups of monsters that they might encounter on the route that they would be traveling, like trolls and kobolds. Lily observed the map in her hand, which had been marked by the head of the shamans. Suddenly, the young lady felt a chilly breeze pass through the wagon, alerting her. This feeling was quite familiar to her, as she had experienced it many times in the past. Someone is using scrying magic on us, Lily thought as she summoned her wand. Spiritus Abyss. The young lady waved her hand above her head and conjured a spiritual barrier that blocked the sight of others, who planned to gain glimpses of them from great distances. A frown appeared on her beautiful face because she could feel that whoever was casting the spell was quite powerful. More powerful than her. This is bad. The frown on Lily's face deepened as she gazed at Ethan, who was currently sleeping on her lap. I just hope they don't specialize in dream or nightmare spells. Ethan is currently vulnerable to them. Safia and the other shamans also felt that someone was scrying on them, so they immediately cast their own defensive spells to prevent whoever it was from peeking at them. Inside the Scarlet Citadel. Interesting, the skinny old man muttered. I am certain that there is someone among the allied tribes who bears a connection with that legacy. However, I can't see anything how peculiar. The old necromancer narrowed his eyes as he lightly tapped the scrying bowl with his fingertip, creating faint ripples on its surface. It is indeed there, but it's hidden from view, the necromancer snorted. These second-rate shamans really thought that they could hide something like this from me? How ridiculous. Still, they are heading in the direction that I want them to go. This is very good. The old man smiled. I've been waiting for nearly 300 years. A few more days is nothing. But to ensure that they are not going anywhere, I better herd these sheep into my playpen. The necromancer then closed his eyes as he chanted a few words. He only needed the allied tribes to reach that location. As to how many would be able to reach it, he didn't particularly care. Somewhere in the White Mountain Marches. Understand, Master, a kobold shaman said as he looked at the glowing mirror in front of him. I will send my people to execute your orders. Good, the necromancer replied. As long as you obey me, I'll spare your people from annihilation. Thank you for your mercy, Master, the kobold shaman bowed his head. I hear and obey. After the connection was cut, the fawning expression of the kobold shaman disappeared. It was replaced with disgust and loathing. If possible, he didn't want to obey the necromancer's orders. But the consequence of doing otherwise was complete annihilation, just like the gnomes on the other side of the mountain. The kobold shaman then raised his hand to summon one of his aides. "Tell Kesmet to come see me," the kobold shaman ordered. "The necromancer has issued a decree." The expression of the aide darkened, but he still bowed his head to acknowledge the order. When the shaman was left alone in his cavern, he walked towards the wall and pushed aside the animal's skin that served as decoration. Hidden behind the animal's skin was the drawing of a trident. The kobold shaman affectionately caressed the symbol of the Tidebringer, who once ruled the entirety of the lands of Alaster. "Tidebringer, this humble subject implores you," the kobold shaman said reverently. "A stain is trying to corrupt your land. Please cleanse it with your divine might." The drawing of the trident glowed faintly, as if replying to the kobold shaman's plea. A moment later, faint words reached his ears. "Endure, the one who carries his legacy has come." The kobold shaman almost teared up after hearing these words. Their tribe had been waiting for decades, yet no answer came. Only today did the trident speak, heralding that the one who bore their master's legacy had returned. Clenching his fist tightly, he felt as if their chance had finally arrived. However, he still needed to wait patiently until the chosen one had returned to his rightful place. "Endure," the kobold shaman muttered. "Just a little more, and we will finally be liberated from that necromancer's grasp." The kobold shaman pulled back his hand, and the animal's skin once again covered the trident that was etched on his cavern wall. A moment later, the kobold captain, Kesmet, arrived in his cavern. "You called for me, great shaman?" Kesmet asked. "The necromancer has spoken," the kobold shaman replied. "Follow the allied tribe and ensure that they do not stray off the path of the White Forest. Also, pay attention to anyone with blue hair. If you find them, immediately report to me. No matter what happens, you are not allowed to attack that person. If there comes a time that he's in danger, you are to save him at all costs. The survival of our entire tribe depends on it. Do I make myself clear?" Kesmet nodded. "Yes, great shaman, I will do as you say." The kobold captain left and went to gather his people. Although he didn't know why he should pay close attention to any blue-haired individual, their shaman's words were absolute. They knew that they were merely chess pieces of the necromancer who had secretly encroached upon their domain. However, there was nothing they could do about it. Their only path to survival was obeying his order. Rejection was not tolerated. Failure was not an option. It was either they did it or they died trying to do it. The kobold shaman didn't dare to share what he knew with the rest of his tribe. Although he believed in his people, he didn't dare to take any chances, especially not when the old necromancer had decided to make use of all of his chess pieces in an attempt to steal the power of a deity. The caravan of the allied tribes continued their travel northwest. On the second day of their journey, they came across the survivors of the nomad tribe who had been attacked by goblins. The nomad tribe was a tribe with a level equivalent to one among the three great tribes. Their population was in the 3,000 to 4,000. However, the monster raid had caught them completely by surprise. According to their chieftain, they didn't just face goblins. They also faced skeleton warriors, which served as the vanguard. "Most of our warriors died," Great Chieftain Falker said with an anguished look on his face. "Now, less than half of our tribe remains. We thought of migrating west, past the Salba Plains, and heading to the Rivolo River near Otranto Keep. But seeing all of you here makes me think that it's no longer an option. Why have you abandoned your hunting grounds?" Great Chieftain Adrian sighed before sharing their troubles with his fellow chieftain. Great Chieftain Falker's expression turned grim after hearing his explanation. "The three great tribes allied with the orcs and attacked you and the Eagle tribe," Great Chieftain Falker inquired. "Just how did this alliance form?" Great Chieftain Adrian shook his head. "I have no idea. Originally, we planned to migrate to your location, but we heard the news that your tribe has also been attacked by goblins. Because of this, we decided to head northwest, taking the path near the Zelato mine. Great Chieftain Falker thought for a bit before a frown appeared on his face. You are headed to the White Road, which leads to the White Forest. Great Chieftain Falker arched an eyebrow. Is that your final destination? Yes and no, Great Chieftain Adrian replied. We plan to go beyond the White Forest. Great Chieftain Falker's eyes widened in shock. Beyond the White Forest is, I see, so you are going to that place. But can you pass the natural barrier? We will know once we get there. Can we come with all of you? Right now, no place is safe in these lands. There is also safety in numbers. Great Chieftain Adrian and the other great chieftains of the allied tribes eyed each other. The remnants of the nomad tribe numbered less than 2,000. If they were to join them, they would indeed benefit due to the increase in the number of warriors that could help defend them if their pursuers decided to follow their caravan. You can come with us. It was the head shaman, Safia, who spoke, making everyone's attention fall on her. These are dire times, and all of us might be sharing a common enemy, Safia stated. Although I am uncertain about the connection between the sudden alliance of the three great tribes and the orcs, there is also a possibility that the goblin raid in your tribe is related to them. Even if we don't manage to cross the natural barrier of the White Forest, it is still spacious enough to house all of us. Right now, we need all able-bodied men to make a stand and repel our foes. Is the nomad tribe willing to ally with us? Great Chieftain Falker nodded. I am willing to ally with the allied tribes. We can perform the blood rites once we all make camp. Safia nodded. We can do that in 2 days. Tonight, we will travel continuously without rest. The farther we are from the Trialo stronghold, the better it is for all of us. A.N. The Trialo stronghold is the stronghold of the allied tribes, where they battled the three great tribes and the orc. And with that, the nomad tribe joined the allied tribes on their journey. Having thought about Ethan's current state, the great chieftains and the shamans of the allied tribes didn't inform their new ally about his existence. Truth be told, they weren't certain if Ethan could help them pass through the natural barrier of the White Forest. The only one that was capable of doing it was the Tide Bringer, who had escorted their tribes 300 years ago. The nomad tribe has decided to ally with us and is now traveling with us to the White Forest, Safia told Lily and Ethan, who were inside her wagon. The head shaman would glance at Ethan from time to time, but the young man was meditating with his eyes closed. He looks so tired, Safia thought, but we need his strength. Safia had seen how Ethan fought before everyone retreated. He was like a monster who fought many opponents at the same time, killing the enemy frontliners and slowing the momentum of those behind them. Because of his presence, the orcs had retreated from the battle after the death of their leader, allowing their warriors to resist the brunt of the three great tribes' assault. But after the battle, Ethan had become very ill to the point that his screams would reverberate throughout the surroundings whenever he had a nightmare. Everyone looked up to him as their savior and protector. Seeing him in such a state had lowered the morale of the warriors, who had fought alongside him during the siege of the Trialo stronghold. In order to prevent the morale from sinking lower, they isolated him to a place where his screams wouldn't reach anyone. Fortunately, after leaving the Weeping Shrine, Ethan no longer had nightmares. Whenever he slept, Lily would be there to hold him and ensure that he felt safe and protected. This was why the respect of the great chieftains, as well as the shamans, for the beautiful young lady had risen to the point that they thought of her as their equal. After all, the wife of the Tide Bringer was an existence that couldn't be ignored. Suddenly, Lily and Safia both felt a tingling sensation washing over their bodies. They gave each other a knowing glance and remained silent. Both of them had erected a powerful spiritual barrier inside the wagon, preventing anyone from scrying on them. After nearly a minute, the tingling sensation vanished, which meant that the one who was trying to observe them from afar had left. Unless it is absolutely necessary, keep Ethan inside the wagon, Safia said. "There is someone powerful at work, and they seem to be looking for something. I'll try to make a charm that will shield him from detection whenever he leaves the wagon." Lily nodded in understanding. Right now, her priority was to stabilize Ethan's mind. She believed that as long as Ethan could overcome his trauma, he would become stronger in both mind and body. Right now, their survival was uncertain. If Lily really couldn't help the allied tribes in overcoming their enemies, she would take Ethan with her and escape somewhere safe until the wars in the lands of Alastair were over. "They're here, sir," a kobold reported. Kesmet nodded and then eyed the approaching caravans with a solemn look on his face. Currently, they were standing on the top of a canyon, overseeing the caravan passing below them. If they wished for it, they could cause a landslide that would bury these humans and wipe out more than half of them in a single move. But Kesmet didn't do that. Their shaman had emphasized to him that their role was to only make sure that the caravans would not venture anywhere else as they traveled on the White Road, leading to the White Forest. Truth be told, there was another route that the humans could have taken, which would still lead them up to the White Mountains marches. This mountain was home to the mountain people, the mountain trolls, as well as the kobolds. Their task was to ensure that the humans wouldn't take the route up the mountains and simply continue their journey towards the White Forest. The kobolds didn't bother to hide their presence from the humans because this was the most effective strategy that would not lead to casualties on either side. As someone who stood on the high ground and had the terrain advantage, all they needed to do was stare down at the humans, pressing upon the latter an invisible pressure that made them extremely wary. They had also set up a blockade on the path that led towards the mountain as insurance. Fortunately, the humans didn't deviate from their route and traveled past the blockade that they had set up. If they continue with this speed, they will arrive at the White Forest in 3 days, Kesmet mused. After that, they will be trapped with nowhere else to go. I wonder, just what does that bastard necromancer want from these humans? The kobolds may not be the most peaceful of races in the lands of Alastair. However, they weren't the type to start a war without a good reason. They were a race that preferred to expand their nest under the ground and mostly kept to themselves. But ever since the necromancer invaded their nest, they were forced to obey him. Should they fail to follow, the eggs in their hatchery would all become corrupted, giving birth to monstrosities that were half kobold and half undead. "I don't see any blue-haired individuals outside," Kesmet thought as he scanned the warriors that were escorting the wagons. Maybe they are inside the wagons. The kobolds continued their vigil for half a day, until all of the humans passed by their domain. Once he was sure that the allied tribes were headed to the White Forest, Kesmet returned to their nest to report to their shaman. "Good," the shaman replied. "And did you see anyone with blue hair among the humans?" Kesmet shook his head. "I didn't see anyone with that hair color walking outside. Maybe they were inside the wagons." The shaman nodded. "Make sure to not tell anyone about our discussion. Keep this secret to yourself." "I will," Kesmet replied before leaving. Now that their duties were done, it was up to the necromancer's other puppets to make their move. 3 days later, the tribes finally reached their first checkpoint and made camp right outside the White Forest. All of them were tired from their journey, and all the chieftains agreed to let everyone rest for 2 days. The warriors all needed to recover their strength before they would be sent to scout inside the forest and deal with the dangerous creatures that would potentially block their way. The White Forest spanned for miles, and several monster groups were lurking inside of it, including goblins and lizard folks. Even so, with the combined warriors from the allied tribe and the nomad tribe, they were certain that these monster groups would think twice before attacking them. "Let's go outside to get some fresh air and stretch our bodies," Lily proposed. "We've been cooped up inside the wagon for days. It will be good to have a change of pace." Ethan nodded and followed Lily outside of the carriage. The dark circles under his eyes were nearly gone because he did nothing but eat, sleep, and meditate for the past few days. Lily's companionship had allowed him to regain a sense of calm, allowing him to function normally. When the two appeared, the members of the allied tribes greeted them with kind smiles. Ethan and Lily returned their greetings as they looked at the white forest in front of them. Although it was vastly different from the great eagle forest of Brynhildr Academy, Ethan still felt a sense of familiarity with it. It was as if he had been there in the past, despite the fact that this was the first time that he had been to this place. Suddenly, Ethan fell into a trance. His vision zoomed past the towering trees, traveling at great speeds. Suddenly, his vision hit what seemed to be the base of a mountain, cutting off any progression forward. But this only lasted for a few seconds before a path appeared in front of him. If Ethan didn't know better, he might have thought that the mountain had been split in half, creating a passage that was big enough to allow 3 wagons to travel side by side. When this path appeared, Ethan's vision once again zoomed forward until it broke through to the other side. There, he saw a wide plain, filled with grazing animals like deer and bison. The young man's vision once again moved forward before stopping at what seemed to be a giant lake that spanned for miles. The only difference was that this wasn't really a lake, but more like a giant lagoon that was connected to the sea. Ethan's vision once again shifted, piercing through the water, allowing him to see a city that was submerged underwater. At first, he thought this was the city of Atlantis that he had once read about in a book, but since he wasn't sure about his guess, he simply observed it from different angles. At the center of the city, a pyramid could be seen. At its very top, a stone trident with its tips facing towards the heavens glowed faintly. Suddenly, a voice that was gentle and firm at the same time reached his ears. "Come, Tidebringer, let the world know your story." After hearing that voice, Ethan felt his vision slam back into his body like a stretched rubber band that had been released. Ethan's body shuddered as he took a step back, and then swayed where he stood. If it weren't for Lily immediately supporting his body, he might have fallen on the ground face first. "What happened?" Lily asked in a worried tone. "Are you feeling dizzy?" "A bit lightheaded, but I'll be fine after a while," Ethan replied. "I think I saw something beyond the forest that is calling out to me." Lily glanced in the direction of the white forest before shifting her attention back to the handsome young man. Truth be told, she could feel a dense concentration of magic power somewhere in the forest, but she couldn't specifically pinpoint its location. The back of Ethan's left hand glowed faintly, making the mark of the sea god's trident appear. It then materialized in front of Ethan and hovered in front of his face. The young man reached out to it, allowing it to return to its original size. Safia, who was following behind Ethan to ensure that he was safe, suddenly felt a surge of anticipation in her heart. As if being guided by a mysterious force, Ethan raised his trident towards the sky. A moment later, something unexpected happened. The forest in front of him parted, creating a path that was wide enough for 3 carriages to move side by side. Those who saw this couldn't help but gasp, and the gazes of the allied tribes that had landed on Ethan's body changed to awe and disbelief. Great Chieftain Falker, who was currently talking to Great Chieftain Adrian, looked at the forest in front of him before shifting his gaze to the Great Chieftain of the Kendall tribe, who had a relieved expression on his face. "So that's it," Great Chieftain Falker thought, as if he realized something important. "This is why the allied tribes decided to head to the White Forest despite the natural barrier." Great Chieftain Falker then looked at the young man with blue hair in the distance, who was holding a trident in his hand. On the surface, the chieftain's gaze was steady, and yet his heart was beating wildly inside his chest. He was hopeful and fearful at the same time. Hopeful that they now had a path to survival, and fearful that this hope would be crushed as swiftly as his relief had come by the unseen hand that was toying with the lives of men and beasts, as if they were nothing more than puppets tied up on a string. The sound of weapons clashing against each other reverberated inside the White Forest. A horde of goblins attacked them in the middle of the night. Fortunately, the warriors of the allied tribes were ready for them. Amidst the chaos that spread in the surroundings, a young man brandished his trident and pierced the chest of a goblin that had lunged at him with the intention to kill. With a roar of anger and defiance, Ethan pulled back his trident and swung it toward another goblin who had managed to break past the defensive lines of the allied tribes. His face was grim as he pierced the head of the fallen goblin with his trident, which was now soaked with blood. "Kill or be killed," Ethan muttered as if it was a mantra that kept him sane. "Kill or be killed." His breathing was ragged, and he was doing his best to fight the fear that was threatening to take over his body. His bloodshot eyes locked onto his next target before thrusting his trident forward. Due to his increased strength, the sea god's trident managed to reap the life of the goblin with 2 strikes. One at the chest and another on its head. The sea god's trident had 2 abilities. The first one was a passive ability that gave its wielder a strength boost that was as powerful as Magna Amplifico. The other one was also a passive ability that allowed its wielder to have a clear head and maintain calm, even in the face of adversity. Unfortunately, the second ability didn't activate, forcing Ethan to fight the enemies while containing the fear that was welling up inside his heart and mind. Before his other half went into hibernation, the latter made sure to tamper with the sea god's trident and temporarily disable its second ability. He wanted Ethan to not depend on things that affected his state of mind. If he overly relied on the sea god's trident passive mind-calming ability, then what would happen to him if he had to fight without the trident? Wouldn't he be crippled in more ways than one? Ethan's other half wanted the young man to develop will so strong that it could overcome the traumas he'd have to face. His hand trembled as he ended the life of another goblin in front of him. Ethan only killed 3 of them, and yet he was already very close to reaching his limit. Lily, standing not far from him, used her wand to freeze the goblins that tried to sneak attack the teenage boy from the side. There were 2 small ice foxes beside her that were doing their best to protect their mistress from the monsters that targeted her. "You can do it, Ethan," Lily stated. "I'm here with you." Ethan nodded as he took a defensive stance to block the attack of another goblin, who had tried to sneak inside the wagon where Grandma Rhea and Jenna were staying. When they entered the forest, the wagon of the head shaman had traveled alongside the wagon of Great Chieftain Adrian to give Ethan and Lily additional protection, just in case monsters were to attack them on their journey. Some of the elite warriors of each tribe were gathered to become Ethan's personal guards to ensure his safety. However, due to the sheer number of the enemy, a few monsters were bound to break past their formation, and these monsters were the ones that Ethan was fighting against. In order for Ethan to overcome his fear, Lily had given him a few rules that would allow him to kill when necessary. The first rule was to kill or be killed. The second rule was that he was allowed to kill someone if it was self-defense. The third one was that he should never take the life of others without reason. And last but not the least, he should never kill anyone, including monsters and beasts for sport. Lily understood that she needed to give Ethan a push in the right direction by using morals as an anchor. It was very easy to lose your humanity when faced with difficult choices, especially on the battlefield. Lily didn't want Ethan to end up as a cold and heartless killer who wouldn't bat an eye whenever he took the lives of others. She didn't want him to become a killing machine that wouldn't hesitate to kill the innocent if they annoyed him. The young lady had seen people who were forced to fight due to necessity. Some of them had their minds broken and went down the wrong path. Truth be told, she could have asked Ethan to hide inside the wagon while the warriors protected him. However, she didn't do this for one simple reason. The longer someone endured or ignored a trauma, the deeper it would take root inside their heart and subconscious mind. This was why those who suffered from incidents like car accidents were advised to drive a car again as soon as possible. If they didn't, they would feel chills just by holding the steering wheel and suffer from panic attacks if a lot of time had passed. Although it was difficult, the sooner someone overcame their trauma, the better. Ethan also understood that he couldn't run away forever. So despite the fact that his body was trembling all over and that fear was taking over his senses, he still fought. With every thrust, he would roar in order to disperse the fear in his heart. Every time he swung his trident, he would shout. He already knew how to fight due to his training. Fighting a goblin one-on-one wasn't a difficult task for him, so he fought with everything he had while trembling all over. The elite warriors like Rex, who were assigned to guard him, were also paying close attention to him. If something unexpected happened, they wouldn't hesitate to lend their hands to help. However, it seemed like their help wasn't needed with Lily there to support her husband, impaling the goblins with ice shards and turning the rest into ice statues. The battle lasted for nearly an hour before the goblins retreated. Dozens of warriors had died, but hundreds of goblins had perished in turn. This outcome was already good since the losses weren't that big. However, losses were still losses. Ethan stood with his eyes closed, taking deep breaths in order to calm his senses. He was still feeling lightheaded and a little nauseous, but he endured it and used his trident as a support to keep him standing. Lily approached him and lightly patted his shoulder. "You did well," Lily said. "Are you hurt somewhere?" Ethan opened his eyes and looked at the young beauty, whose green eyes were looking at him with concern. "Just some minor scratches," Ethan replied. "Nothing too serious." Lily nodded and held his hand. "No matter how small the injury, we should still treat it properly." Lily held Ethan's hand and pulled him towards Safia's wagon. "Goblins don't clean their weapons. Even if you only sustain shallow wounds from their weapons, there is a high chance that the wound will get infected." Ethan didn't resist and allowed Lily to take him back inside the wagon under the watchful eyes of his bodyguards. What they didn't know was that high up on a tree, a one-eyed crimson bat had watched the battle from start to finish. When the battle ended, it flew towards the sky, heading northeast where its master was waiting for its report. However, before it could even get far, a white raven descended from the sky and used its claws to cut the bat in half. The bat wasn't even able to utter its final screech before its body crashed towards the ground, never to be seen or heard from again. The white raven circled the area to make sure that there were no other spies present to observe its master. Only after it was sure that the coast was clear did it descend onto a tree branch to stand vigil. As his master's spirit guide, it was his duty to deal with the minor threats that targeted his master. For now, he would keep his presence a secret and observe the handsome young man from a distance. Truth be told, he was sad to see Ethan forced to mature in this manner. Even so, he understood that his master also couldn't remain innocent and ignorant of the world forever. Dantalion was certain that the moment the handsome young man returned to the present, not only would he be stronger than before, but he would also understand what it meant to make tough choices in life. 2 days before Ethan and the allied tribes entered the White Forest. "Are all of you sure that this is where you last saw my students?" Professor Reinhardt asked the 3 wizards who had tried to capture Ethan and Lily when the 2 of them were running away to escape. "Why, yes, this is the place," one of the chained wizards replied. "I'm sure of it." Professor Barrett, who was holding the chains, smiled. "If you are lying to us, we will torture you again," Professor Barrett stated. "This time, we will not hold back and might even accidentally kill you all. I'm already old, so my hand might slip while holding the blade. I apologize in advance when that happens, okay?" The ex-magistratus' eyes glinted with killing intent, which made the 3 wizards shudder. If they had known that they would personally be hunted by the headmaster of Brynhildr Academy, and the magistratus considered the strongest before his retirement, they would have left their territory long ago. Professor Reinhardt narrowed his eyes when he noticed the white raven that landed on the ground where a footprint could still be seen. He knew that this raven belonged to Ethan, and he didn't expect it to follow them from the academy. The headmaster of Brynhildr Academy took a deep breath before taking out his wand. He then moved it in a circular motion, as tendrils of light moved in front of him. Preteritum visum. A moving photographic image appeared, showing the events that transpired in the past. Professor Reinhardt kept on rewinding time until a white portal appeared on the image. After rewinding for a bit more, he saw a blue-haired boy carrying a young lady in his arms, running toward the white portal. The two professors saw the moment when a stone bullet hit Ethan's head, making him collapse face first in the portal before disappearing from sight. This confirmed the prisoner's statement that the two teenagers had entered a nexus in order to escape their pursuit. "What do we do, Reinhardt?" Professor Barrett asked. His voice was tinged with regret and unwillingness. "We can't do anything but wait for their return," Professor Reinhardt replied in a calm manner. Professor Barrett could tell that, although the headmaster looked calm, the latter was doing his best to hold back from killing the prisoners that they had captured. They were part of the bandit organization that not only attacked merchants and other travelers, but were also involved in the human trafficking of wizards and witches. If Professor Reinhardt could have his way, he would definitely wipe all of them from the face of Eastshire. However, he couldn't be everywhere at once. If not for the fact that Nicole and Chloe immediately sent messages to the Academy about what had happened during their expedition, the bandits and the wizards who attacked their group wouldn't have been captured quite so easily. While the professor was thinking about what to do next, Dantalion looked at the place where the Nexus once stood. His eyes glowed faintly, creating ripples in the air. A moment later, a small white portal appeared that was only as big as a person's hand. "Don't worry, I will bring them back safely," Dantalion said to the two professors via telepathy. "If there is someone who can return to the present after traveling to the past, it will be none other than the master I serve." When he finished saying those words, Dantalion flew towards the small portal and vanished alongside it. Professor Reinhardt and Professor Barrett glanced at each other, not knowing what to do. Only after a few minutes had passed did the headmaster of Brynhildr Academy speak his thoughts out loud. "Return them to the dungeons," Professor Reinhardt stated. "I will write a letter to Ethan's and Lily's families. They have the right to know what has happened to their family members." Professor Barrett nodded. "Understood. Don't be too hard on yourself, Reinhardt. Even with enough preparations, we can't save everyone." "I know, Barrett," Professor Reinhardt replied. "I just hope that they will be able to return safely." The headmaster of Brynhildr Academy sighed internally before flying towards the sky. Now that things had ended in this manner, the only thing they could do was wait for a miracle to happen. A miracle that would allow the two teenagers to return to the present and reunite with their loved ones who were waiting for their return. After battling the goblins, the allied tribes continued their journey until they arrived at the base of a mountain that seemed to be made up of hard stone. It was very steep and nearly impossible to climb. This was the natural barrier that prevented anyone from going further upon reaching the edge of the White Forest. "Tidebringer, if you please," Safia bowed respectfully to Ethan. Ethan nodded and summoned the sea god's trident. He then used the trident to lightly tap the wall made up of hard rock in front of him. The shamans, as well as the great chieftains, waited with bated breath to see if something would happen. A few seconds later, symbols appeared on the wall's surface, forming a giant trident. With a rumbling sound, the wall parted, revealing a path that would allow them to cross to the other side. Safia and the great chieftains couldn't help but smile in happiness, because they were now certain that they would be able to reach the safe haven, where their ancestors once lived in the distant past. With Ethan's wagon at the lead, the allied tribe traversed the natural barrier that had opened a path for them. Inside the Scarlet Citadel, the old necromancer frowned after sensing a faint ripple of strong magical energy in the distance. He had been patiently waiting for his familiars to return to him, but none of the one-eyed crimson bats he sent had returned. He had ordered them to go to the White Forest to keep an eye out for any suspicious individuals, but even after summoning them multiple times, none of them were answering his call. What he didn't know was that a certain white raven had killed all of his familiars, preventing them from reporting to their master. The necromancer wasn't a fool, so he had already thought of the possibility that his familiars had died. Going to the large bowl in front of him, the necromancer once again used his scrying ability to take a peek at what was happening in the forest. It was then that he saw the allied tribes passing through the natural barrier, using a path that had never been there before. I knew it. A smile appeared on the face of the old necromancer. It seems that the Tidebringer is really with them. Since that is the case, it's time to go to the next phase of my plan. Tapping the surface of the water, the necromancer communicated with the three great tribes, the orcs, the goblins, as well as the kobolds. Since the path to the ancient city was now open, he would not hold back anymore and claim it as his own. Make haste and prepare for war, the old necromancer ordered. All of you gather at the White Forest and wait for my arrival. After giving his order, the old necromancer gazed towards the southwest with a sneer. I've stayed in this decrepit body long enough, the old necromancer smirked. Now that the perfect vessel has appeared, it would be a waste not to put it to good use, right? A faint chuckle escaped the old necromancer's lips as he approached the altar of the Scarlet Citadel, where a pool of blood was waiting for him. This blood was collected from the young men and women of the tribes that had been conquered by his minions, which allowed him to replenish and increase his necromantic powers. The old necromancer had hundreds of years to prepare for the arrival of the Tidebringer, so he was looking forward to the battle that would make everyone in the lands of Alastair bow down at his feet. The warriors of the allied tribes went on a hunting spree after crossing the natural barrier. Knowing that it was only a matter of time before their enemies closed in on them, they hastened their pace and stocked up as much food as they could. Fortunately, the plains were rich with game like deer and bison. They already hunted boars in the White Forest earlier, but it would still not be enough for thousands of people. While the hunters went hunting, the lead caravan continued to move forward. Ethan sat beside Safia, who was holding the reins of the horses. In the distance, he could see a patch of blue waters, which was going to be their final destination. He had already seen what was beneath that body of water, and it was none other than the ancient city of Zentris. It was a city built on top of a small mountain. During the day, the water in the lagoon would recede and return to the sea. At night, it would return, leaving only the city above the water, forming a natural moat. When the tribes had left Zentris, the city remained submerged underwater regardless of whether it was night or day. Only the Tidebringer's presence would allow the ancient city to surface again. After 2 days of traveling, they finally arrived at the lagoon that was similar to a giant lake. The sun had already set when they arrived, so the only thing they could see was the reflection of the moon on the water. A great bonfire was set up, and everyone gathered around it in a good mood. Although it wasn't anything excessive, everyone ate better that night as they knew that when morning came, the city of Zentris would show itself to them, allowing them to enter its walls. For some reason, Ethan was feeling incredibly drowsy, and he was unable to stay awake no matter what he did. Because of this, he didn't join the festivities and slept early. Lily joined the shamans and listened to their stories about the city of Zentris. She wanted to know more about this mysterious city, which was said to belong to the Tidebringer himself and served as the sacred grounds of the lands of Alastair in the distant past. Unfortunately, after the Tidebringer left, the natural barrier prevented anyone from crossing to the other side of the White Forest. Only those who had the ability to fly or had a flying beast could venture further. Even so, with the ancient city submerged under the water, they were unable to explore its secrets. Just past midnight, Lily finally went to the wagon to sleep. As soon as she laid beside Ethan, the young man stirred and looked at her in a daze. "Sleep," Lily said before lightly patting his head. "We have a lot of things to do tomorrow." However, instead of cuddling with her, like he usually did, Ethan rose up from the bed as if he were in a trance. He left the wagon and walked towards the lagoon with steady steps. Lily, who didn't know what was going on, followed behind Ethan to ensure that nothing bad would happen to him. She even walked ahead of him and blocked his path, preventing him from going further. "Ethan, if you continue to move forward, you will fall in the water," Lily stated. The handsome young man paused for a bit before smiling at her. His blue eyes glowed faintly, radiating with some kind of power that was hard to describe. "Don't worry," Ethan said softly. "Everything is going to be fine." His voice was calm, gentle, and filled with confidence. It was as if he was telling Lily that everything was under his control and that she didn't need to worry about him. The young lady frowned, but ultimately decided to let him do what he wanted and followed closely behind him. "Is he still half asleep?" Lily thought. "Maybe if he falls into the water, he will suddenly wake up." She had seen a few sides of Ethan as of late, and for her, the handsome young man was shrouded in mystery. The Ethan who fought against the 3 great tribes and the orcs was strong. In fact, Lily had a feeling that if she fought against that Ethan, her chances of winning were low. She didn't even need to cross blades with him to know how powerful he was. As a warrior, her senses could easily tell that the purple-eyed Ethan was truly a monster. The usual Ethan was carefree and easy to get along with. This was also the version of Ethan that had undergone the most suffering after the battle in the stronghold ended. But now, this Ethan in front of her was very different from the ones she had seen in the past. His smile was sweet, as if he was a child that was about to play with his favorite toy. His presence made her feel refreshed, as if she was being bathed by clean and revitalizing waters. His steps were steady and filled with confidence, which was similar to the purple-eyed Ethan. But instead of feeling intimidated, she couldn't help but feel attracted to him. "Come," Ethan said as he reached out his hand to her. "Trust me." The young lady looked at the hand he offered for a few seconds before placing her own on top of it. Ethan's smile widened as he held her hand in a reassuring grip before continuing to walk forward. When they were only a few steps away from the water, Lily started to feel a bit anxious, but Ethan continued to walk without a care in the world. The moment his feet finally touched the water, Lily was prepared to pull him back just in case he dragged her with him to its black depths. But what she was expecting didn't happen. Ethan's feet floated above the surface of the water. He then looked back at her with a nod of encouragement. The young lady hesitated at first, but after seeing that the handsome young man was standing perfectly still, she decided to take a leap of faith and took her first step. To her surprise, she felt that she was stepping on something that could support her weight, so she decided to take another step forward. Similar to Ethan, she found herself standing above the water as if it was magic. "Let's go," Ethan said softly as he walked while holding Lily's hand. The handsome young man led the way, and Lily followed a step behind him. Suddenly, ripples started to form in the middle of the lagoon. The moonlight was bright enough to illuminate the path, allowing the young lady to see something that was rising up in the water. Those who were still awake at the shore finally became aware of what was happening. They started shouting, waking up the rest of the tribe. At first, everyone thought that they were under attack. However, when they turned to look in the direction where the warriors were pointing, they finally understood what was happening. A city had risen up from the waters, taking everyone by surprise. Those with better eyesight caught sight of the 2 people who were walking on top of the water, headed toward the city in the distance. Now that the ancient city of Zentris had finally made its appearance, the secrets that it hid for hundreds of years would emerge once again. As Ethan and Lily continued walking atop the water, a brilliant blue light erupted from the city and bathed the 2 teenagers with its radiance. When the light receded, the 2 of them were no longer in the spot where they were walking. Instead, they were teleported to the top of the pyramid, which was located in the center of the city. Lily found herself standing in front of what seemed to be a trident-shaped stone. It stood 3 meters tall, and there were runes glowing on its surface. Suddenly, Ethan's body shuddered. The young man looked in front of him in confusion, and then around his surroundings. When his gaze landed on Lily, He regained a semblance of calm before asking her a question. "Where are we?" Ethan asked. "Are you the one who brought me here, Lily?" Lily blinked in confusion, thinking that Ethan ought to be aware of what was going on. After realizing that the handsome young man was as clueless as she was, she understood that the latter might have been in a trance when he decided to take a midnight stroll towards the ancient city. "No," Lily replied. "Actually, you were the one that brought me here. You don't remember anything." Ethan shook his head. "The only thing I remember was sleeping early. I didn't recall going anywhere after that." Lily nodded in understanding. However, before the two of them could continue talking, they heard a faint chuckle in front of them. To think that an innocent boy like him would actually have descendants, color me surprised. Should I refer to you as this generation's tide bringer? Ethan and Lily glanced at their surroundings, trying to look for the source of the voice. But instead of seeing where the voice was coming from, they heard another chuckle, which made the two of them look at the stone trident that had glowing runes on its body. "Congratulations and welcome to the city of Zentris, Tide Bringer," the trident said. "I am its steward, and you can call me Sebastian." "You can talk." Ethan looked at the trident in disbelief. "Duh," Sebastian replied. "Of course I can talk. What's wrong? Is this your first time hearing a trident talk?" "Yes." "Well, I guess there's a first time for everything." An awkward silence descended upon the surroundings, which Lily broke. She decided to take over and ask the stone trident some important questions. "Do you know if there is any kind of gateway here that will allow someone to travel in different timelines?" Lily asked. "Or any kind of phenomenon that will make it possible for someone to travel to the future?" "Young lady, are you referring to what the ancients call a nexus?" Sebastian answered. "If so, the answer is yes." Lily and Ethan exchanged a glance, and after so long, a hint of excitement appeared on their faces. "Then, can you tell us where it is?" Lily inquired. "We need it to travel back to the future." "I see." The trident's body glowed faintly. "Now it makes sense. I could tell that you were his descendant, but to think that you came from the future, this is truly unexpected." A moment later, an image of an extremely handsome young man with blue hair stepped out of the stone trident. He was only wearing pants, and his near-perfect body, which was oozing with strength and manliness, made him look like a deity that had descended into the world to make mortal women fall in love with him. Even Lily found herself unable to avert her gaze as she looked at the young man, who had a smile that could cause the downfall of nations. "It's hard to talk as a trident, so I took on the form of my master instead," Sebastian stated before smiling at Lily and Ethan. "Now, where was I? Ah, yes, the Nexus. If you are looking for something that would allow you to travel to the future, then you are in the right place. I am capable of doing that." Ethan's and Lily's expressions became solemn as they looked at Sebastian, who had an amused look on his handsome face. "But I will not send the two of you back to your present right now," Sebastian explained. "If you wish to return, you have to do something for me first. Also, it takes time to gather enough magical energy to open a nexus. At most, you will have to wait until the next lunar eclipse before I can open the gateway to the future." Ethan frowned. "When is the next lunar eclipse?" 2 months from now," Sebastian replied. The two teenagers breathed a sigh of relief because they thought that they would have to wait for a few years for the next lunar eclipse to occur. Seeing their relieved faces, Sebastian chuckled again before a look of ridicule appeared on his face. "Let's put aside the lunar eclipse for now," Sebastian commented. "Now, let's talk about what the two of you need to do in order to get back home to your own timeline. First and foremost, although I am the Tidebringer's servant, I only answer to my original master. Since you are his descendant, I can, of course, extend my help to you. But it won't be for free. Have you heard of equivalent exchange? In order for you to go home, you need to do something of equal value." Ethan nodded his head in understanding. "Then, what do we have to do in order to get back home?" "Straight to the point," Sebastian grinned. "I like that." Sebastian then looked at the south with contempt. "You see, after my master disappeared, A bastard decided to make the lands of Alester his sacrificial grounds, Sebastian replied. He slowly built up his army, annexing one force after another. Now, he had full control of nearly the entirety of the lands of Alester, with the exception of this territory. Currently, he is amassing his forces to attack this city. No matter what happens, he must not be allowed to succeed. If he were to gain my master's legacy, then this entire continent will be under his mercy. Sebastian's expression became solemn as he looked at the young man in front of him. This person is a necromancer, Sebastian added. The number of undead under his control is in the tens of thousands, a force that can easily swallow up the nearby kingdoms if left unchecked. Right now, he is on his last legs and has only been able to survive after sacrificing countless lives. But that too can change now that you are here. You see, only those with my master's bloodline can obtain his legacy. So, since this necromancer wants this legacy, what do you think is his priority? Ethan's face paled after realizing what Sebastian was hinting at. You mean his main target is me? Ethan asked back. Right, Sebastian nodded. To him, you are the perfect vessel. So there are two conditions that you need to meet before I help you go home. The first one is to defeat the necromancer and end his reign of terror once and for all. The second is for you to survive until I am able to gather enough power to send the two of you back to the future. Very easy, right? If you win, you will be the talk of legends. If you lose, a different legend will be born, and that would be the downfall of this entire continent at the hands of that necromancer. Either way, people will talk about this tale for the next few hundred years. The steward of the ancient city smiled mischievously as he looked at the descendant of his master. Truth be told, he was annoyed with the original Tide Bringer for leaving him to watch over this city in his absence. It had been 300 years since then, and not once had the Prince of the Sea returned to the lands of Alester. Before he left, the Tide Bringer told Sebastian that he was going to fight a primordial monster that planned to drown the entire world and kill all life within it. That was the last time Sebastian had seen and talked to his master. The world wasn't drowned by the raging waters of the sea, so he assumed that his master had succeeded. However, as to what price the Tide Bringer paid in order to win, Sebastian could only make a few guesses, and one of them was that he sacrificed his life in doing so. It's no use thinking about these things right now, Sebastian thought as he looked at Ethan, who had now grown quiet after his revelation. Since he is here, it means that the master managed to leave his descendants behind. Sebastian smiled bitterly as he looked in the direction of the sea. That fool always tried to carry the burden of the world on his shoulders all by himself. I just hope that this boy will not grow up as stupid as him. Although he was still bitter after being left behind, that didn't change the fact that Sebastian's loyalty was still strong towards his master. Because of this, he was willing to extend his helping hand to the two teenagers who had appeared in the right place at the wrong time. When the sun rose on the horizon, the water in the lagoon slowly receded, heading back to the sea. The allied tribes looked at this scene with awe. Although they had been waiting for this moment, they still felt anxious because they were afraid that the legends about the city of Zentris weren't true. Now that their worst fears had been proven false, all of them patiently waited until the water in front of them had receded completely. Originally, they thought that, once the water disappeared, the bottom of the lagoon would be muddy. Fortunately, they were proven wrong. The bottom of the lagoon was similar to the hard rock that served as the natural barrier between the white forest and the plains that led to the city of Zentris. To their surprise, they even saw a natural road that traveled from the shore up to the base of the mountain. And from the mountain, another road could be seen leading toward the gates of the city. The wagons then made their way down the base of the lagoon. The incline wasn't steep, and even Ethan thought that it was made with the intention of allowing several wagons to travel as safely as possible toward the city. So this city is going to be our fortress against the army of that necromancer that you spoke of, Ethan said to Sebastian via telepathy as he looked at the caravan that was making its way toward the city of Zentris. What do you think are our chances of winning? Good question, Sebastian rubbed his chin. I'm thinking that it's 50-50. Really? Ethan arched an eyebrow. Sebastian smirked. Do you think this city is just an ordinary city? It was built with the concept of becoming a fortress. Naturally, this city is equipped with natural defenses. There are even ballistas powered by magic. Ethan was quite surprised by this revelation. Just as he was about to say something, Lily stirred, which made his body stiffen. The young lady used his lap as a pillow, and her body was covered with a blanket. She had only fallen asleep a few hours ago, so the young man didn't want to wake her up. This was also the reason why he and Sebastian were talking through telepathy. Ethan had slept a lot over the past few days, in Lily's naked embrace, so he was still well rested. Recalling these intimate moments, the handsome young man couldn't help but blush as he remembered how selfless she had been with him. She's a keeper, Sebastian commented as he glanced at the young beauty, whose head was resting on Ethan's lap. She will give birth to powerful descendants, so make sure to not let others take her away, okay? Ethan neither denied nor confirmed Sebastian's statement. After spending time with Lily, it was impossible for him to not appreciate her kindness, care, and beauty. His heart wasn't made of stone, and he was a healthy young man. Although he didn't think of anything perverted when she was helping him recover from his trauma, the faster he recovered, the more conscious he became of her. The numbness in his heart and mind had disappeared, and this was all thanks to the warmth of her body and touch, which he would remember for the rest of his life. Seeing that Ethan wasn't saying anything, Sebastian shrugged. His master was also not very good when it came to relationships. Only bold and aggressive women had the ability to pin him down on the bed, and even then, he would not take the initiative to do anything, allowing these young ladies to take the lead. Perhaps this was why none of the young ladies of the allied tribes in the past managed to conceive his child. Of course, that might not be the only reason. The Tidebringer was a special existence. He was superior to humans, so it was very hard for ordinary mortals to conceive his child. Having a strong body was the bare minimum to contain his essence, and that alone wasn't enough. Even the chaste maidens who possessed magic still didn't succeed. In the end, the Tidebringer returned to the sea, without leaving any descendants in the allied tribe. Perhaps this was also a blessing. If he really did manage to make the women of the allied tribes conceive, wouldn't that mean that the necromancer would have succeeded in using these children as a vessel in order to obtain his legacy? A few hours later, the entirety of the allied tribes were safely evacuated behind the walls of the city. Ethan and Lily had a meeting with the great chieftains as well as the shamans. He informed them about the necromancer who was responsible for the unrest that was happening in the lands of Alester. After knowing the identity of their true enemy, instead of being relieved, the expressions of everyone in the meeting room became grim. A necromancer wasn't an easy opponent, especially a powerful necromancer who commanded tens of thousands of undead. First and foremost, all the warriors should familiarize themselves with the city's defenses, Ethan stated. There are dozens of magical ballistas within the city that will be indispensable in the upcoming siege by our enemy. Although the sea water will return inside the lagoon during the night, that doesn't mean that our enemies are unable to attack us. There is a possibility that they have flying mounts as well as flying beasts that can attack us from the skies, so we can't be complacent with our defenses at night. The great chieftains, as well as the shamans, nodded their heads in understanding. They believed that as long as they were in the city of Zentris, their chances of surviving the necromancer's siege were quite high. Seeing that their faces had gained a bit of color in them, Ethan proceeded to tell them the things that Sebastian had mentioned to him during the night. Food and water will not be a problem, Ethan stated. The city has a magical net that can capture countless fish during the night. As for water, there are several natural springs scattered around the city. You can collect fresh drinking water from those locations. The great chieftains and the shamans sighed in relief after hearing this information. Although they could survive a siege from their enemies, one of their primary concerns was food and water. Since they were trapped inside the city, it would be hard for them to gather the resources needed for survival. Fortunately, they no longer had to worry about that issue and could put all their focus on the task at hand, which was to defend themselves against the necromancer's attack. One more thing, the necromancer's goal is to get the Tide Bringer's legacy, Ethan said with a solemn expression on his face. In order to do that, he will need to capture me and possess my body. Great Chieftain Adrian's expression changed after hearing this bit of information. Understood, we will create a group of elite warriors to protect you at all times, Great Chieftain Adrian stated. Although I would like to ask you to stay in the rear where it is safe, I also hoped that you could be on the front lines of the battle. Your presence will definitely increase the morale of our people, allowing them to fight to their fullest. Ethan smiled bitterly after hearing Great Chieftain Adrian's proposal. He still hadn't fully recovered from his trauma, but he also understood that staying away from the battle wouldn't help him one bit. At that moment, he felt Lily's hand give his own hand a light squeeze, as if telling him that she would be there to protect him. Very well, Ethan reluctantly nodded his head. I will do my best. A few minutes later, they ended their meeting, and the great chieftains carried their orders to their people. They still had many things to do, and that included housing their people inside the city. Fortunately, the city was quite big and had several levels. The city of Zentris was 2 miles long and 3 miles wide. There was more than enough space to house thousands of people who would depend on its defenses to weather the siege that would very soon arrive at their doorstep. Ethan and Lily didn't need to worry about their own residence. The entire pyramid was reserved for the Tide Bringer, giving the 2 teenagers a lot of privacy. As everyone familiarized themselves with their new home, the army of undead had started to march from the Scarlet Citadel. They were headed toward the entrance of the White Forest. Their movement speed was neither fast nor was it slow. The undead didn't need time to rest, so they could move day and night without stopping. Even so, it would still take them 1 week to arrive at their destination. After that, they would spend a few more days building their siege machines, which they would use against the ancient city, which had stood in the lands of Alastair for hundreds of years. According to Sebastian's estimate, the first clash between the necromancer's forces and the allied tribes would take place in 2 weeks' time. In that span of time, he intended to share the Tide Bringer's legacy with the handsome young man, who carried the bloodline of his master, whom he hadn't seen since the day he left to battle with the primordial monster that wished to drag the entire world into the sea's murky depths. After settling inside the city of Zentris, the allied tribes spent the next few days preparing for the war that was about to come. The warriors would leave the city during the day in order to chop down trees, which they would use to make spears and arrows. The blacksmiths were also hard at work, forging weapons and other works of metal for everyone. The women were assigned to harvest and process the fish that were caught by the magical net during the day. They used various methods to preserve them, like drying and smoking, to increase their food reserves. The children who were old enough to help were tasked with delivering the food to the warriors when it was time for them to eat. Everyone was busy, including Ethan and Lily, who were under Sebastian's strict tutelage. Although the Tide Bringer's legacy could only be used by Ethan, that didn't mean that Sebastian would only teach the latter. He had lived long and naturally. He also had knowledge about other ancient magic that Lily could use. In fact, Lily was pleasantly surprised when Sebastian had given her several scrolls. Some of them taught her how to increase the effectiveness of her ice magic without increasing the magical drain on her body. He also introduced to her a method she could use to prevent her from going berserk and losing her senses after transforming into her demi-wolf form. Of course, that was not the only thing that the nosy trident had shown them. He also gave Ethan and Lily a scroll on how to refine, replenish, and enhance each other's magical powers through skinship. Simply put, It was a form of dual cultivation that was very effective when done by magical couples. When Ethan saw this, he almost choked on his saliva, while Lily only gave him a mischievous smile. The handsome young man had almost recovered from his trauma, which caused him to no longer be distracted from the young lady's naked body. "Do you want to try it?" Lily asked in a teasing tone. "But if you do, take note that there is a high chance that my father will skin you alive. If you are willing to take that risk, then I don't mind practicing this technique with you." "Sorry, but I'll pass," Ethan replied. "For now." His face reddened after adding the latter part of his sentence, which made Lily playfully punch his shoulder. The two of them had grown so close to each other that it was safe to say that they had reached the stage where they were more than friends, but less than lovers. Even so, Lily still thought that, even though they couldn't go all the way with the technique that was written in the ancient scroll, doing the rest was fine with her. Right now, Ethan was very limited by the amount of magic power that he could use. His power could only be replenished by doing two things. The first was kissing. With this, he would be able to absorb Lily's powers and use magic for a day, unless he used all of it by activating his partial resonance. The second option was to use the magical bracelet that served as Ethan's magical battery. It worked the same way as kissing, but once it was depleted, it would take Lily 3 to 4 days to fully charge it. If the siege were to happen once a week, then there wouldn't be a problem. However, if it happened every day, Ethan would only be able to use magic for 2 days before he had to resort to traditional combat. "I don't mind it, really," Lily said with a straight face. "We have less than 2 months remaining before Sebastian sends us back home. The hard part is to survive until then. Also, the necromancer's target is you. If you don't have the magical means to defend yourself, then his chances of possessing your body are very high." Ethan understood the logic, but he still felt that doing it would be taking advantage of Lily. There was a technique in the ancient tome that involved kissing. Ethan didn't know if that would still trigger the effect of the technique, and he didn't want to try at this point in time. It had been nearly a week since he had last kissed Lily, and if he kissed her now, he would then absorb her magical power, which should only be used for emergencies. As for the rest of the technique, although they wouldn't be going all the way, it was very similar to foreplay. Either way, he would disadvantage the young beauty who was kind enough to care for him for the past few days. He respected and cared for her so much that he wouldn't allow himself to take advantage of her kindness. Seeing Ethan's hesitation, Lily decided to not push the matter too much. Although she said she didn't mind it, how could that be possible? She was still a chaste maiden, and she was only doing her best to help the two of them survive in the era they found themselves in. Lily was happy that Ethan cared enough about her to not take things lightly. If she were with someone else, she wouldn't even consider doing this with other people. The only reason why she was fine with Ethan was due to the fact that she only acknowledged strong people. It was a concept that was ingrained into her by her tribe. Lily wouldn't lower herself to someone weaker than her, and would not hesitate to kill anyone who tried to take advantage of her just to satisfy the needs of their body. Such an innocent child. Sebastian placed his palm over his forehead. I even gave him the perfect excuse and opportunity to do it with Lily, but what does he do? He doesn't have the balls to go through with it. Is he even a man? Shut up, Sebastian. Ethan glared at the trident who had taken the image of the extremely handsome Tidebringer. I can hear you. Of course, you can hear me. I am making sure that you do. Sebastian rolled his eyes at the weakling, who clearly didn't know how much effort he put into trying to find a way for him to use magic during emergencies. Lily could only giggle at the antics of the trident, who acted as both a wise elder and a nosy big brother. These happy days didn't last long because 2 weeks later, dark clouds started to roll in from the direction of the White Forest. Sebastian also stopped acting carefree, which made Ethan and Lily understand that their enemy was near. Hovering in the distance, the necromancer eyed the city of Zentris. A crimson glint could be seen inside his eyes, and the corner of his lips curled up into a smile. His army was already gathered at the entrance of the White Forest and was currently marching to his location. He was very tempted to cross the lagoon and enter the city, but he could sense the magical barrier that enveloped its walls. The necromancer would need to find the perfect opportunity to infiltrate its defenses and find the person that he was looking for. "Patience," the old necromancer said softly. "Just a few days more and everything will fall in place." The old necromancer grinned as he glanced behind him, where his mighty army that numbered in the tens of thousands was at. He could already taste his victory in the air. He could almost feel the strong body of the perfect vessel that he would inhabit. "In a few days, the lands of Alaster will belong to me," the old necromancer stated. "A month after that, the Magdar kingdom and those foolish sorcerers who exiled me will fall. Then by the end of the year, this continent will be mine. And after that, the entire world will be ripe for the taking." The old necromancer laughed like a madman, with thunder and lightning crackled above his head. While this was happening, the legions of the undead began their march across the plains, which would become their foothold as they laid siege against the ancient city of Zentris. The tension within the walls of the city of Zentris was high as everyone looked at the plains, where countless skeleton soldiers stood. Above their heads, dark clouds loomed over them, spread across the sky. Lightning snaked across the heavens, and thunder boomed loudly. Strong winds buffeted the city, but the warriors standing on top of the ramparts, as well as those manning the magical ballistas, remained firm. It had been 3 hours since the sun had set, and the lagoon was flooded with seawater, serving as the city's defensive moat. Ethan and Lily stood on the ramparts, along with the elite warriors who served as the Tide Bringers' bodyguards. Their gazes were locked on the unholy army in front of them, and all of them had grim expressions on their faces. Surprisingly, Ethan found himself not feeling as anxious as he thought he should be. Perhaps since the bulk of the enemy was made up of undead, he didn't have to worry about killing people. At least, that was the explanation that he had figured for himself due to how calm he was feeling. Perhaps it was also due to the hand holding his own, making him feel that he wasn't facing this situation alone. The countless glowing eyes in the darkness were enough to make even the heart of the bravest warrior feel faint. But since the Tide Bringer was among them, they felt as if all hope was not lost. "Do you think they will attack even though the path is blocked by water?" Rex asked Ethan, whose gaze was fixed on a single spot in the distance. "The possibility exists," Ethan replied. "After all, they are undead and don't need to breathe underwater." The young man's gaze was locked on the necromancer in the distance. Although it was dark and nearly impossible to see clearly, the young man, as well as the warriors of the allied tribe, didn't have any problems. Sebastian had granted everyone inside the city night vision, allowing everyone inside the city to see their enemies as if it was day. The dark clouds in the sky had prevented the light of the moon and the stars from illuminating the surroundings, which was part of the necromancer's plan. He was not aware that his opponents weren't as helpless as he thought they would be in the darkness. Seeing that the time was ripe, the necromancer raised his right hand. 20 ogres, which were 5 meters tall, all moved to push the 5 catapults that they had made in order to attack the city forward. They pushed until the catapults reached the edge of the lagoon and loaded them with boulders. The shamans of the 3 great tribes tapped the boulders with their staffs, igniting them in flames. When all the boulders were lit, the necromancer pointed at the city, which was his signal to strike. The allied tribes watched with bated breath as the 5 fiery boulders flew in their direction. However, these boulders fell a few hundred meters short of the city walls. Their flames were immediately extinguished by the seawater, resulting in sizzling noises as steam rose up from the lagoon's surface. The corner of the necromancer's lips curled up into a smirk before giving the signal for the ogres to pull the catapults away. He also didn't expect the boulders to hit the city. It was merely his way of giving his greeting to the Tide Bringer, who was hiding behind the city walls. The necromancer lightly tapped his staff on the ground, and his undead army all stood at attention. Attack. It was just a single word, but the undead army surged like a tide. Their burning eyes blazed in the darkness as they walked towards the lagoon and into its dark depths. Lily, Ethan said as he looked at the beautiful young lady beside him. Lily nodded. Ethan cupped her face and kissed her lips, which made the warriors guarding them have no idea if they should laugh or cry. All these men were still single and didn't have any lovers or wives. For them to see such a passionate display right before the battle made them feel as if they were missing out on a lot in life. When their lips parted, Ethan wrapped his arms around Lily and gave her a hug. He then kissed her forehead before whispering something in her ears. "We will survive this together," Ethan whispered. "We will return to the present together." "Yes, we will," Lily replied as she also hugged Ethan. After both of their hearts had calmed down, Ethan reluctantly pulled back and summoned the sea god's trident in his hand. The blue trident glowed faintly in the darkness, boosting Ethan's strength. Its second function, which helped Ethan calm his mind, was still deactivated, but the handsome young man didn't care. He couldn't run away forever, and he knew that now was the time to fight. Sebastian told them that if they wanted to go home, they should defeat the necromancer and end his tyranny once and for all. Since that was the case, Ethan steeled his resolve as he prepared for the arrival of the monsters that were marching under the lagoon, headed in their direction. "Magna Amplifico," Lily chanted, as she lightly tapped her chest with her wand in order to boost her body's performance. Suddenly, beyond the darkness, the flapping of countless wings could be heard. The necromancer sneered as he flew toward the sky and landed on the back of a bone wyvern. Behind him, hundreds of undead flying monsters of all shapes and sizes waited for his command. When the skeleton soldiers finally reached the base of the mountain where the city of Zentris was perched, they started to climb it like a horde of ants. Seeing this scene, the necromancer cackled as he urged his flying mount to fly toward the city. The flying monsters behind him advanced forward, flying past his wyvern mount and emitting shrill cries as they descended toward the city like rain. Ethan raised the sea god's trident in his hand, which was shining brightly. A moment later, a sneer appeared on his face as he used the trump card that protected Zentris from invasions in the past. After gaining the Tide Bringer's legacy, Ethan gained the power to command the creatures that were within the boundaries of his domain. Release the Kraken. From the sea, a giant black behemoth silently entered the lagoon. Half a minute later, the waters of the lagoon became violent as countless tentacles rose from beneath the sea and toward the sky. Sebastian, who was standing on top of the pyramid with his arms crossed over his chest, sneered as the countless tentacles started to obliterate everything that was within its reach, including the flying wyvern that the necromancer was standing on, which instantly shattered under its overwhelming might. The warriors up on the ramparts cheered as their blood boiled inside their chest. They were prepared to lay their lives on the line to protect their people, despite the sheer number of their enemies, and had already prepared themselves for the worst. When the skeleton soldiers that numbered in the tens of thousands began to advance, they grit their teeth and waited for them to climb the city walls. However, when the necromancer called forth an army of undead flying monsters, their expressions became grim. Not only did they have to fend off the skeleton warriors climbing up the city walls, they also needed to fight against the flying threats that would soon swoop down from the sky. The worst-case scenario was for these monsters to completely ignore the defenders on the city walls and descend upon the city, killing the women and children that were housed inside it. The magical ballistas roared to life as they attacked the flying monsters that were desperately flying towards the city in the hope to escape the tentacles that had wiped out a quarter of their forces. Lily's 2 ice foxes unleashed a barrage of ice bullets, shattering the bodies of the flying monsters that came within their range. Although a good chunk of the enemy's forces had been destroyed, the rest of the flying monsters were able to break past the city walls and descend upon the city. The warriors on the ground immediately engaged them, while those on the ramparts threw large-sized stones at the skeleton soldiers that were halfway up the wall. They knew that arrows wouldn't do much against the skeleton soldiers, so they simply used stones to smash their bodies to pieces. Fortunately, the skeletons were weak against blunt attacks, so their strategy was quite effective. After being unable to kill the flying monsters that had escaped its grasp, the Kraken shifted its attention to the skeleton soldiers on the walls and under the water, smashing them all into bits. The necromancer didn't expect that the Tide Bringer had this trump card in his hands, and he felt as if his strategy to attack during the night had backfired on him. Even so, what was done, so he could only grit his teeth and go with his second plan. The warriors on the ground started to die one by one as the battle raged on. Those that had died would suddenly rise up again, attacking their comrades, which made their hearts turn cold. This was why fighting against a necromancer was such a pain in the ass, because as long as they were alive, they could continuously raise the dead and fight for him for as long as he had the magical capacity to continue reconstructing their bodies. Screams of horror and desperation spread in the city as former friends and family members killed each other after they were revived by their enemy. Ethan, who was on the wall, knew that things couldn't continue this way. Because of this, he took out his wand and tapped it on his chest. Fairy Fuga. A pair of fairy wings grew on his back, allowing him to fly. Lily jumped off the ramparts, and Ethan caught her in a Princess Carry as they descended towards the city in order to help the warriors defend against the flying monsters that had engaged them in close combat. The moment they landed on the ground, Lily immediately transformed into her demi-wolf form and charged at the nearest monster, destroying its body with a single kick. Ethan, on the other hand, swung his trident, creating crescent slashes that sliced the monsters in half. The battle continued for nearly an hour before the sound of a horn spread in the night. It was the signal for retreat, and the surviving undead army retreated, leaving the defenders shaken and panting for breath. Ethan stood amidst countless broken bones with a solemn expression on his face. Although they had managed to fend off the necromancer's first assault, it didn't make him feel happy. The number of monsters that entered the city was nearly 300, and those 300 managed to kill hundreds of their defenders before their bodies crumbled. Originally, the number of casualties wasn't going to be that high because the magical ballistas assisted with cover fire. However, the slain warriors were revived by the necromancer and killed some of their comrades through surprise. Also, 3 of the 50 magical ballistas were also destroyed during the battle. Although this number was small, each ballista was very precious, especially during times of war. Losing 3 of them was a great loss for the defenders. The bodies of the fallen warriors were all collected and laid at the center of the plaza. The great chieftains looked at Ethan as if asking him what they should do with the bodies of their fallen tribesmen. The handsome young man glanced at his wife, who nodded her head and answered in his stead. "We need to burn their bodies until only ash remains," Lily said firmly. "We can't afford to let these brave warriors raise their weapons and kill their friends, family, and tribe members. They wouldn't want that to happen, so we need to send them off with dignity. We don't know how long it will take for the enemy to regroup and mount another attack. Time is of the essence, so inform their family members of what needs to be done." The head shaman, Safia, nodded. "Create a large pyre and lay our warriors around it," Safia ordered. "I want their bodies burning within an hour. We will not allow the necromancer to tarnish their honor." The warriors all roared in agreement and immediately set out to work. A sigh escaped Ethan's lips as he looked at the dark clouds above his head. He was certain that, when morning came, another assault would come knocking on their door. This time, the sea and the Kraken would not be there to protect them. They would have to fend for themselves against the living and the dead, who now realized that attacking them at night was a big mistake. Ethan glanced at Lily, and the latter nodded her head. She undid her transformation and walked up to him, holding his hand. Sebastian needed less than 2 months to send them back to their own timeline. However, only a few hours had passed after the battle, and it made the two teenagers understand that this mission that they needed to overcome was several times harder than they initially thought it was. Also, Ethan's instincts were telling him that this first clash against the undead army had a deeper meaning in it. However, due to the heaviness of the atmosphere, he set aside this thought for the time being because he was unable to think properly. The young man watched with a solemn gaze as the warriors completed their funeral rites, which would send the spirits of their brothers to the lands of their ancestors, while their mortal bodies burned in blazing flames until nothing but ash remained. After the funeral, the three great chieftains decided to let more than half of the warriors rest, while the others would continue to stand guard. They didn't know if the enemy would attack again during the night, but they were certain that once the sun rose from the east, the undead army would march again. All of them were exhausted, and they knew that if they didn't rest now, they wouldn't have the chance later, knowing that they would not have time to spare once the battle started. Ethan and Lily returned to the pyramid to rest as well. They were confident that Sebastian would wake the two of them up if the enemy were to really attack them while it was still dark. "How much magic do you still have in your body?" Lily asked as she laid down on the bed beside the handsome young man. "I still have more than half remaining," Ethan answered. "I'll use it sparingly tomorrow." Lily didn't say anything for a minute and simply looked at him with a curious gaze. "We kissed a while ago," Lily commented. "Is it possible to replenish your magic if a full day hasn't passed yet?" Ethan pondered for a bit. He genuinely had no idea whether it was possible to replenish the magic power that he absorbed from the same girl if she were to kiss him again. During the clash of manners, Chloe kissed him repeatedly before the duel started. However, since he had just absorbed her magic power at that time, he didn't really notice any changes after being kissed by the same person. Also, he felt rather shy asking for another kiss from a girl after he had already been kissed. Even with the fairies, Ethan didn't kiss them more than once when he was absorbing their powers. "I don't really know if it's possible," Ethan replied after a minute had passed. "I've never tried it in the past." Lily smiled after hearing Ethan's reply. She could tell that Ethan only kissed girls when it was necessary for him to absorb magic. "We are currently in a bad situation," Lily said softly. "After you use up the magic inside your body, the only other source you'll have is the magical bracelet. When that is used up, you will have to wait several days before you can use magic again. For now, how about we experiment first? We won't lose anything by trying." Ethan's face reddened because he suddenly had another opportunity to kiss Lily. Seeing the blush on his face, the smile on Lily's face widened, finding Ethan's shy reaction quite endearing. "Why are you blushing?" Lily asked in a teasing tone. "Have you forgotten that we have done more than just kiss?" After realizing what the beautiful young lady was talking about, the redness of Ethan's face became a shade deeper. His gaze subconsciously moved towards Lily's chest, which was currently covered by her wizard robe. Since they didn't know when the old necromancer would decide to start their next battle, both of them kept their robes on. "What am I to do with you, Ethan?" Lily sighed before cupping his face. "Do you want it that badly? I suppose I can let you do that again as a reward if we manage to beat that necromancer." After Ethan regained some of his emotions, Lily no longer slept naked beside him and just cuddled with him with her clothes on. For that, Ethan was quite thankful. If his grandma found out about the things he had done with Lily, she would slap his face repeatedly with her flip-flops and force him to take responsibility and marry Lily. Of course, Ethan wouldn't mind taking responsibility and doing that. Lily was a beautiful young lady, and he would be more than happy to marry her. However, he also understood that neither of them was ready for that. Their relationship might be more than friends and less than lovers, but couldn't the same be said for Chloe and Luna? The two young ladies who had supported him during his darkest moments also had a special place in his heart. There was an unspoken promise between the three of them, and Ethan wanted to tell Chloe and Luna what he felt about them. However, before he could do that, he and Lily were forced to enter a nexus that sent them in the past. Not only was he thousands of miles away from Brynhildr Academy, but he was also hundreds of years away from their current timeline. Are you crying? Lily asked in surprise after she saw a few tears stream down Ethan's eyes. If you really wish to do it, I guess I'll make an exception just this once. Ethan, who was pulled out of his daze by Lily's words, touched the side of his face and felt something wet. That was when he confirmed that he was indeed crying. He didn't feel sad because of his pain and the trauma he experienced on the battlefield. He felt sad. It only dawned on him how much he missed his grandparents and the two ladies who had given him their unconditional support and love. They were the people that he would be unable to see again, unless he managed to defeat the necromancer who wished to take over his body. I'm okay. Lily, Ethan said as he wiped the tears from his eyes. I just remembered my grandparents. Only your grandparents? Lily asked in a teasing tone. Why don't you admit that you also miss Chloe and Luna? You shouldn't underestimate a woman's intuition, you know. We know when the boy in front of us is thinking about other girls. Instead of answering Lily's question, Ethan just smiled and looked at her with a gentle gaze. You're right, Ethan stated. Right now, we should be doing everything in our power to survive. I haven't tested if it's possible to replenish my magical power by kissing the same girl before a day has passed. If you are fine with it, can I please kiss you, Lily? Lily pouted. You're changing the subject. Right now, I am only looking at Lily, Ethan commented. I won't think about other girls for the time being. For the time being, Lily arched an eyebrow. Does it mean that you will think about other girls when you feel like it? No comment. Ha Tilda, what am I going to do with you? Lily shook her head helplessly before cupping Ethan's face. The two of them stared at each other before the two of them moved to kiss each other. This time, their kiss was different from the kiss that they shared on the ramparts. It was not a passionate kiss, but it was a very sweet kiss and lasted for a few seconds. When the kiss ended, Lily pecked Ethan's lips 2 more times before pulling back. Well, how is it? Lily asked. Ethan's eyes widened in shock because he could feel that his magical reserves had been filled up completely. This was a groundbreaking discovery. It turned out that he could replenish his magic by kissing Lily repeatedly, as long as a day hadn't passed. It worked, Ethan replied with a smile. My magic is at full capacity. Great, Lily smiled back. Now let's sleep. Tomorrow's battle will be tougher. The young lady hugged Ethan and buried her face in his chest. She always had a confident and fearless expression whenever she was talking to Ethan, but he seemed to have forgotten that Lily was still a teenage girl. Deep inside, she was also feeling anxious. However, she would not allow herself to show any hint of weakness because it might affect Ethan's unstable condition. She didn't want to lower his morale, which would in turn lower the morale of the people who believed in the Tidebringer. So, for now, she would bury her face in Ethan's chest and prevent him from seeing the fears that she had bottled up inside her heart. Ethan didn't know what Lily was going through, but the overflowing desire to protect and keep her safe rose in his heart. Wrapping his arms on her soft and delicate body, the handsome young man wanted to let her know that he would always be there for her. Both of them felt warm and safe in each other's arms. Soon, the two of them fell asleep, resting their bodies for the upcoming battle. A battle that would force the two of them to make tough decisions for the sake of their survival, as well as the budding feelings they had for each other that had taken root deep inside their hearts. When the sun rose in the east, the warriors of the allied tribes stirred. The water in the lagoon slowly receded, and the kraken, which had helped guard the city during the day, followed the tide as it returned to the sea. The women and children who were old enough to work were busy delivering food to the warriors, which would give them energy to fight the battle that had yet to start. This was the only role that they could fulfill during the war, and they took it very seriously. The warriors who had stood vigil during the night were relieved of their duties and had been ordered to rest as much as they could. Their rest would only last for a few minutes to several hours, depending on the necromancer's mood. An hour of rest might not be enough to recover their strength, but they didn't have any choice on the matter. Fortunately, the necromancer didn't order his men to attack right after sunrise. On the necromancer's side, the three great tribes, the orcs, the goblins, the ogres, the trolls, and the kobolds all ate their meals as they waited for the old necromancer to give them the signal to attack. Currently, the leader of the unholy army sat on a makeshift throne that stood on a raised platform. His head was resting on the palm of his hand as if he was sleeping. No one dared to disturb him, for they had already seen the fate of those who angered him. They knew that a battle was going to happen, but until the puppet master moved his hands, the puppets did not dare to move on their own. Sebastian, who had been observing the old necromancer the entire night, felt that something was amiss. However, he just couldn't put his finger on it. Safia, who had been given the permission to climb the pyramid, brought food for the two teenagers. But when she saw that the two of them were still sleeping, she put down the food on the table and left without another word. It was only 2 hours later that Ethan stirred from his slumber and opened his eyes. "Rise and shine, sleepyhead," Sebastian said through telepathy in order to not wake up Lily, who was still using Ethan's body as her hug pillow. "Your food has already been delivered, so eat now while you still can." Ethan nodded and gently pried Lily's soft hands from his body. A part of him was reluctant to do so, but he understood that Sebastian was right. It was better to eat now while he still could. But as soon as her hands were no longer holding onto something, Lily's eyes abruptly opened and looked at Ethan in a daze. Clearly, she was still half asleep, and it would take her a minute or two to snap out of it. However, Ethan was feeling mischievous, so he lightly squeezed her cheeks, forcing her to smile. "You're sleeping on the floor tonight," Lily said, as the last dregs of sleep disappeared from her body. Ethan chuckled before quickly apologizing to her. Lily ignored him and went to the table to pour some water into a bowl to wash her face. The handsome young man shook his head helplessly and did the same. A few minutes later, the two of them ate in silence, while Sebastian reported everything that happened when they were sleeping. "He hasn't stirred from that throne of his the entire night," Sebastian stated. "This is supposed to be a good thing, but I feel uneasy about it." "You too?" Ethan asked. "I'm feeling the same thing." Lily, who had just finished eating, looked at Ethan and Sebastian with a frown. She wasn't feeling anything out of place, but if her two companions were both feeling uneasy, then something must have triggered this feeling. "I don't want to say it, but last night's attack seemed rather odd," Ethan explained after seeing Lily's imploring gaze. "It was too easy." "Exactly," Sebastian agreed. "Although it didn't look that way during the actual battle, when things settled down, I found that everything wasn't as dire as I initially thought it would be." After hearing both of their explanations, the frown on Lily's face deepened. She tried to recall the battle that happened several hours ago, but she didn't find anything suspicious about it no matter how hard she tried. Are the two of them just being paranoid? Lily thought. Of course, she didn't say her thoughts out loud and simply listened to Ethan and Sebastian, who were both feeling that something was wrong. An hour later, Ethan and Lily descended the pyramid to see the general situation of the allied tribes. To their surprise, their elite guard was already waiting for them at the base of the pyramid and stood at attention the moment the two teenagers made their appearance. "We are going to head to the city walls," Ethan said. Rex and the other warriors nodded and immediately stepped into a defensive formation with Ethan and Lily at the center. The Tide Bringer was their anchor, so they would do their best to protect him at all costs. The young man had already become used to this treatment, so he didn't say anything and just allowed the warriors to do their duty. When the warriors on the city walls saw him, a bit of life returned in their eyes, and they all gave him a nod of greeting. Ethan sighed internally, because he still wasn't used to being treated like some kind of deity that was worshipped by people. However, if simply being there was enough to keep the morale of the allied tribes high, he was willing to adjust to being the receiving end of their fervent gazes. After looking at the army in the distance, Ethan felt as if the trauma he had experienced was slowly, but surely, recovering. He no longer felt panicked when facing an army that numbered in the tens of thousands, and was able to observe them from afar with an appraising gaze. The young man was still unable to shake off the uneasy feeling in his heart, but since there was nothing he could do about it, he just kept a calm expression on his face. A few hours later, the sun had already risen to the zenith, but there was still no movement from the old necromancer. Time passed without a care for the feelings of the people on the battlefield, and before they knew it, the sun had already set in the west, shrouding the world in darkness. The lagoon was once again filled with water, creating a defensive moat that stood between the unholy army and the allied tribes within the city of Zentris. Suddenly, just an hour before midnight, the necromancer opened his eyes. The sound of countless wings flapping in the night sky spread in the surroundings, which immediately made the warriors of the allied tribe stand in attention. The necromancer slowly raised his hand and pointed at the ancient city in the distance. "Attack," the necromancer ordered. Right after he said those words, he closed his eyes again and resumed the resting position that he had taken for the entire day. This time, flying undead monsters, which numbered over 1,000, split and spread in the skies like a net, moving to the east and west sides of the city. Naturally, Ethan summoned the Kraken once more, which immediately attacked the flying monsters within its range. However, this time, the flying monsters were prepared. After a few dozen of them were destroyed, they immediately turned and flew higher into the sky, stopping just out of the range of the countless tentacles that rose from the surface of the water. Soon, these flying monstrosities descended on the city, and another battle took place. Ethan and Lily fought side by side, with the young lady transforming into her demi-wolf form, destroying the flying monsters that were targeting Ethan from the sky. While this was happening, a pair of eyes watched her closely, observing her movements and appraising the spells that she was using on the battlefield. This same pair of eyes would shift their attention to Ethan from time to time, memorizing his battle style as well as his performance. That night, nearly 200 warriors on their side died before the undead army retreated. Just like what happened the first night, the nagging feeling that Ethan had pushed to the back of his mind returned. This time, it was stronger than ever, making him feel very concerned. He didn't understand why the necromancer chose to attack at night, knowing that the defenses of the city were at their strongest at such a time. Also, he didn't use any part of his army aside from the flying monsters under his command. The more Ethan thought about it, the more anxious he became. It was as if their enemy was toying with them and was only focusing on decreasing the allied tribe's manpower. For him, it was normal to have casualties during a siege, but the more he tried to find a justification for the necromancer's strategy, the more confused he became. He wasn't aware that, as the warriors piled up the dead bodies in the plaza to be set ablaze, a pair of greedy eyes, who wished nothing more than to devour him at this very moment, watched him from a distance. Somewhere in the necromancer's camp, the kobold shaman secretly took out a smooth rock with the etching of a trident on it. He said a few words, and the rock glowed faintly, replying to his prayers. After exchanging information with each other, the kobold shaman returned the rock to its hiding place and exited the tent. He then looked at the city in the distance, before shifting his gaze to the throne of the necromancer in the center of the army. There was a scheme at play, and he needed to uncover what it was. Although he and his clan were about to take a big risk, he still believed that they would have no future if the one who won this battle was the necromancer. Also, the mere thought of having the decrepit bastard possess the Tide-bringer's body revolted him to the point that he wanted to personally stab the sleeping necromancer and burn him until only ashes remained. However, how could such a thing be easily done? Just what is going on here? The kobold shaman thought. Why isn't he ordering a full-scale siege against the allied tribes? This was the same question that the three great tribes, the orcs, the goblins, the ogres, and the trolls were thinking at the moment. According to their estimate, although the casualties would be great, they would be able to overwhelm the defenders if they all attacked at the same time. But since the necromancer didn't give such an order, all of them were stuck and left to wait for the moment when the necromancer's hidden schemes came to light for everyone to see. 10 days had passed since the necromancer first ordered his attack on the city of Zentris. Each night, he would send hundreds of flying undead monsters to the city without mobilizing the land army under his command. During the day, the skeleton soldiers would go to the White Forest to hunt for flying monsters, as well as regular beasts, which would then be killed and revived on the altar that was located at the rear of the unholy army. The necromancer didn't really care what kind of flying monsters his army caught, whether they were birds of prey or even the small birds that simply sang in the forest. They'd be hunted in order to be revived as part of his flying undead legion. After 10 days of continuous fighting, the number of warriors who had died inside the city had already reached 3,000. All in all, the number of warriors that the allied tribe and the nomad tribe had was nearly 8,000. 3,000 of which had died defending the city, leaving only 5,000 alive. Although the city had managed to repel these continuous assaults, the feeling of helplessness and desperation was taking its toll on the people. If the necromancer's strategy was only to whittle down their willpower and resolve, then he had succeeded. Even with Ethan's presence, the people were barely clinging on to hope. With each day that passed, more people died, and the enemy hadn't even used the full might of his army as of yet. As the sun slowly rose from the east, another day was about to begin. Ethan leaned on his trident in exhaustion. White smoke rose from the plaza as the burial rites of the warriors that had passed ended. What remained were only ashes, making those who managed to survive to see another sunrise feel numb. They knew that once morning came, the possibility of them becoming one of the people who would be joining their brothers in the afterlife was high. All of them were tired and wanted to rest so badly. As they were about to do just that, something unexpected happened. Horns reverberated in the surroundings, which made the handsome young man tremble. This signal only meant one thing. The main army of the necromancer was about to attack. "Defend the walls," Great Chieftain Adrian shouted. Immediately, the exhausted warriors all rushed toward the walls of the city, using all the strength that they could muster. All of them knew that the moment the walls were breached, they would have no choice but to flee to the second layer of the city where the pyramid was located. The pyramid was the last line of defense for the city of Zentris. It was where the women, children, and the old had been evacuated a few days prior. In short, they had already prepared for the worst-case scenario. Out of the 50 magical ballistas that defended the city, only 20 remained. 10 of them were mounted on the city walls, while the rest protected the second level of the inner city where the pyramid was. Ethan and Lily made their way to the walls and gazed at the tens of thousands of skeleton soldiers that were now marching in their direction. The ogres were also pushing their weapons of war, which they would use to take down the city walls. "Aim for the ogres," Great Chieftain Vega of the Brave tribe ordered. "Don't let them get near the city walls." Immediately, countless arrows flew towards the ogres, but the latter were prepared. The ogres who were walking at the front of the catapults raised bronze shields, deflecting the arrows that were raining down on them from the ramparts. Seeing that none of their attacks were able to break past the ogres' defenses, they decided to use the magical ballistas to destroy them and the catapults. However, at that moment, the skeleton archers unleashed a barrage of arrows towards the walls, forcing the defenders to take cover. A moment later, the undead army's catapult roared to life and sent flaming boulders towards the city walls. When the boulders hit the walls, a few cracks appeared in it, but it held firm. Ethan and the warriors breathed a sigh of relief. "Open fire," Ethan ordered. The ballistas then unleashed their counterattack, piercing through the ogres' iron shields and seriously injuring them. While this was happening, the skeleton soldiers had started to crawl up the city walls. All of them seemed to have been imbued with some kind of dark magic that allowed them to scale the walls without any problem. While this was happening, the bombardment of the catapults continued. However, this time, they precisely aimed at a single spot, greatly increasing the damage that was being dealt to the walls. The ogres that had been killed by the ballistas were brought back to life by the necromancer, continuing their roles even though they had died. The faces of the warriors of the three great tribes and the kobolds turned grim after seeing this scene. They knew that even if they perished in battle, the necromancer would not allow them to rest peacefully and force them to fight once again. When the first batch of skeleton soldiers managed to scale the walls, complete pandemonium broke out as a desperate battle started on top of the ramparts. The warriors of the allied tribes fought fiercely, but their movements weren't as fast as they used to be. They had been up all night, and they were all very exhausted. With this disadvantage, the undead army was able to push them back, killing the warriors who barely had enough strength to lift their weapons and defend themselves. Just as the situation was about to slip out of their control, the sound of a horn spread across the battlefield. "Retreat to the inner city," Great Chieftain Adrian ordered. They knew that the longer they stayed to defend the walls, the more dire their situation would become. In just a span of 10 days, the strength of the allied tribes had been whittled down to the point where their first defensive lines fell in just half an hour. "Retreat now, Ethan," Rex shouted as he and the other elite warriors who served as the Tide Bringers' bodyguards fended off the skeleton soldiers that were intentionally swarming the young man in the hope to subdue him as fast as possible. Ethan gritted his teeth as she swung his trident, shattering the skeletons in front of him before running away. Lily, who was always by Ethan's side, ran alongside him. While their team was running towards the inner city, a section of the wall shattered, leaving a big hole. A moment later, swarms of undead beast monsters entered the city through the opening and set their eyes on the blue-haired boy who was being protected by hundreds of warriors. Undead panthers, saber-toothed tigers, wolves, bears, as well as warthogs, all charged at Ethan in a frenzy. Knowing that they would not be able to outrun their pursuers, Ethan decided to make a stand on one of the narrow streets of the city. Facing their enemies, the warriors roared as they held their ground and clashed with the monsters who had now almost descended upon them. Blood was spilled and flesh was torn as both sides clashed. Due to the shaman's magical spells and Lily's deadly attacks, they were able to withstand the first wave of the monster tide. At that moment, Great Chieftain Adrian was pushed down by an undead saber-toothed tiger and was about to be bitten to death. Seeing this scene, Ethan roared and threw the trident in his hand. The weapon turned into a water dragon that obliterated the saber-toothed tiger before it could go for the kill. Just as Ethan was about to recall his trident, something caught his eye which made his face go pale. Lily was fighting against an undead bear monster, and a warrior holding a blade was right behind her. Time seemed to turn very slowly as Ethan watched the warrior thrust his sword forward. However, instead of attacking the bear, the strike was aimed at Lily's back, with the intention of piercing her heart. "Lily!" Ethan shouted with all of his might. The young lady, who was in her demi-wolf form, heard Ethan's voice. A moment later, a blade pierced through her body from the back. Ethan's frenzied roar drowned out the noise of the surroundings as he ran towards the young lady, whose life was flashing before his very eyes. Lily had instinctively moved her body when she heard Ethan's call. She had barely managed to prevent her heart from getting pierced by the sword's strike through her back. As waves of pain assaulted her body, Lily gritted her teeth and took a few steps forward. She knew that if the warrior managed to twist his blade and slash sidewards, her life would end in an instant. Out of desperation, she only did what she could do at that moment and moved to dislodge the blade from her body. Unfortunately, the warrior had anticipated her move and raised his sword in quick motion to finish her off with a follow-up attack. He had been observing Lily for the past 10 days and understood how quick her reaction speed was. Truth be told, the greatest threat on the battlefield wasn't Ethan or any of the warriors. It was none other than Lily, whose destructive power rose several folds once she transformed into her demi-wolf form. Because of this, the warrior had waited for the perfect opportunity to strike, preventing her from evading his attack. His only mistake was that he wasn't able to kill her with a single strike, but that didn't matter. He was certain that his next strike would end the life of the greatest threat on the battlefield, allowing him to fulfill his goals easier. Holding his sword with both hands, he slashed downward without holding back. His intention was to split her body into two before reviving her as an undead, who would become part of his army. Just as his sword was about to end the young beauty's life, Ethan appeared and pushed her away. The warrior's expression immediately changed after this sudden turn of events and forcefully stopped his blow. However, even when he reacted quickly, the blade had already cut through his magician's robe and drawn blood. Ethan, Lily, who was lying on the ground, momentarily forgot how serious her injury was as she forcefully propped herself up and lunged at the warrior, who had attacked them from behind. Letting out a growl filled with rage, the young lady's clawed hands pierced through the warrior's chest and pulled his heart out of his body. She then unceremoniously crushed it before kicking the warrior's body away in a fit of anger. After that, she hurriedly went to Ethan, ignoring the blood that was continuously gushing out of her wound like a fountain. "Protect the Tide Bringer," Great Chieftain Adrian shouted in desperation as he ran towards the fallen young man, whose entire back was covered with blood. The warriors who were tasked to defend Ethan fought tooth and nail as they warded him from the monsters that were trying to grab hold of the Tide Bringer, who had now fallen on the battlefield. Before this, they almost didn't have the strength to continue fighting. However, after seeing the young man fall, their desperation to save him allowed them to channel some kind of hidden strength within their bodies. They fended off the beasts, attacking them like madmen. They were still shaken about the fact that one of the warriors had dared to attack Lily, whom everyone knew was the Tide Bringer's wife. All of them wanted to ask why the warrior had attacked her, but since he was already dead, they would not be able to interrogate him for his crime. Suddenly, the body of the traitorous warrior shuddered, and a black smoke emerged from his mouth. A few seconds later, the black smoke took the form of the necromancer, who was looking at Ethan with bloodshot eyes. "Damn it!" the necromancer cursed as he looked at Ethan's current situation. He had no intention of killing the Tide Bringer because he wanted to possess his body and make his power his own. He only wanted to eliminate Lily, who was the greatest threat on the battlefield and whose death would make Ethan's mental state unstable. The necromancer had managed to possess the body of the warrior because he was knocked unconscious by one of his flying undead monsters several days ago. This allowed the necromancer to overpower the warrior's soul and take control of his body, giving him free rein to observe Ethan, Lily, as well as the other warriors that were tasked to protect the Tide Bringer. He had left his original body in his main camp and had been controlling it remotely for the past few days. His plan had been perfect, and he was able to freely approach the two teenagers without being suspected. Unfortunately, he was heavily guarded, so he could only wait for the right time to make his move. The opportunity did present itself, and he managed to deal a killing blow to Ethan's wife, which he believed would lead to the young man's mental breakdown, allowing him to suppress his soul and take over his body without too much effort. He also planned to revive Lily and use her to further break Ethan's will. Everything was going according to his plan. Unfortunately, his target managed to cheat death at the last second. To make matters worse, the person he wanted to possess was now at death's door, and it was even done by his own hand. "Curses!" the necromancer shouted as he eyed Ethan. "Now it has come to this, I have no choice." The necromancer turned into a black smoke once more and flew towards Ethan with the intention of possessing his body. If he managed to subdue the young man's soul and absorb it fast enough, he might be able to use his necromantic powers to barely save his life. "Your soul is mine," the old necromancer roared. However, before he could merge with Ethan's body, the young man's wand appeared in front of him and unleashed a blinding light that made the necromancer scream in pain. Suddenly, the wand transformed into the image of the mermaid princess, and the latter unleashed a scream that sent a powerful shock wave, which blew the necromancer away, along with all of the undead monsters that had surrounded Ethan's group. Before the necromancer and the undead army could recover, a commotion erupted behind them, which took the necromancer by surprise. "Protect the Tidebringer," the kobold shaman shouted. "Kill! Kill!" The kobolds started to obliterate the undead monsters in their path, starting a one-sided massacre. But it didn't end there. "For the glory of the tides," one of the head hunters of the 3 great tribes shouted, and they joined the kobolds in killing the orcs who had also entered the city with them. Great Chieftain Adrian snapped out of his daze as he hurriedly ordered the elite warriors to carry Ethan away from the battlefield as gently as they could. He took it upon himself to carry Lily because of how seriously injured she was. Her face was very pale, and she had already lost a lot of blood. The great chieftain knew that if the 2 teenagers failed to receive medical help as soon as possible, they would both die, which was the last thing he wanted to see in his lifetime. The old necromancer gnashed his teeth. He was currently in his spirit form, and the mermaid's attack had injured his soul. As much as he wanted to take over Ethan's body right now, he decided against it. The old necromancer glared at the mermaid princess, who was also glaring back at him. For now, he decided to stop his attack and give the shamans time to save Ethan's life. "Retreat," the old necromancer ordered. He needed the Tidebringer alive, so stopping the battle for the time being was the best course of action. The orcs, the trolls, the ogres, and the goblins retreated in haste. The kobolds and the warriors of the 3 great tribes, on the other hand, remained inside the city. They weren't stupid. They knew that the necromancer only treated them as cannon fodders. This was why they decided to rebel and side with the allied tribes. While their former enemies were now defending them from the bulk of the necromancer's army, Ethan and Lily were taken inside the pyramid, where the shamans worked together to tend to their injuries. However, as they tried to heal the 2 teenagers, they discovered something that made their faces turn grim. "They have been poisoned," Safia hissed, "and this poison belongs to the Dream Eater plant. Do any of you have the antidote for this?" "I do," the kobold shaman said, "but I only have enough for 1 person." Everyone's faces went pale after hearing the kobold shaman's words. The Dream Eater poison not only poisoned the body, but it also destroyed the mind of the person who was affected by it. Some say that before the person could even die from the poison, their minds would be destroyed first, making them empty shells of their former selves. While everyone was hesitating on what to do, a weakened voice reached their ears. "Use the antidote on Ethan," Lily said. "Using it on me will serve no purpose. The Tidebringer's life is more important. Also, don't worry about me. I have a way to prevent the poison from spreading inside my body." Safia looked at the young lady with sadness and guilt. Truth be told, everyone might be reluctant, but they were already prepared to use the antidote to Ethan. Just like Lily had said, his life was more important than hers. He was their pillar of hope. If he were to really die, then what were all of their sacrifices for? "I'm sorry, Lily," Safia replied. The head shaman didn't believe that Lily had a way to keep the poison from spreading. She believed that the young lady only said this so that they would focus on saving her husband's life over her own. Lily shook her head. "Don't waste any time. The sooner you save Ethan, the better." The young lady winced as the healers worked to close the wound on her chest. This was the least that they could do for her. After stopping the bleeding, they applied a herbal paste over her wound and bandaged her properly. They then took her to the room, where she and Ethan stayed inside the pyramid and laid her on the bed. Although they didn't say anything, they believed that Lily would breathe her last before the sun set. When everyone left the room, Sebastian appeared beside Lily and looked at her with concern. Do you really have a way to stop the poison? Sebastian asked. I can only delay it, Lily replied weakly as she held the wand in her hand. But I don't have a way to prevent the poison from eroding my mind. Sebastian lightly tapped Lily's forehead with his fingertip, creating a rune. I can prevent the poison from eroding your mind, but this will only last 3 days, Sebastian stated. Thank you, Lily smiled weakly before placing her wand over her chest. At most, I can delay the poison for 3 days as well. Sebastian, can I ask for a favor? Sebastian nodded with a sad expression on his face. What is it? Tell Ethan not to blame himself if I didn't survive. Understood. Thank you. Lily closed her eyes as she chanted the spell that would temporarily put her body in a state of hibernation. Absoluta nulla. Lily's body glowed faintly before it was encased in a thick block of ice. This was her last resort to preserving her life. If Ethan failed to find a way to save her within 3 days, then the young lady's mind and body would perish, leaving him with a guilt that he would carry for the rest of his life. Ethan didn't know where he was, or what had happened to him after his attempt to save Lily from being hacked to death by the warrior who was supposed to be protecting both of them. He was unable to move his body, but he felt very light and comfortable. In fact, he felt so relaxed that he didn't even want to open his eyes and was tempted to continue sleeping instead. However, a voice filled with contempt reached his ears, which prevented him from falling into the darkness that wished to keep him forever in its embrace. How long do you plan to sleep? Do you want to wake up only when Lily is already dead? After hearing these words, Ethan forced himself to open his eyes. What met him was complete and utter darkness. It was so dark that he couldn't see anything, even his own body. But a few seconds later, a faint light appeared in front of him, taking on the form of his appearance. Ethan looked at the cold expression on his other half's face. The latter seemed to be doing his best to restrain the anger that was about to explode in his chest. Although the other Ethan was looking down on him, he was certain that the anger that his other half was projecting wasn't directed at him. Listen, I know that you're still muddle-headed right now, and I can understand that, the other Ethan said in a calm manner. But you have already slept for an entire day, and Lily doesn't have much time left. As much as I want to let you rest and recover, I know that if she really did die, you would regret it for the rest of your life. So, listen properly. You are still seriously injured, but your life is no longer in danger. Once you wake up, ask Sebastian if he has a way to save Lily. I don't have to know to be sure that the price you will have to pay in order to save her will be great, but we really can't let her die. At least, not like this. You don't have to worry about the necromancer right now because he's pulled back his army. He won't be attacking anytime soon. He needs you alive, not dead. Now, take my hand and return to the world of the living. Ethan forced himself to raise his arm in order to take the hand of his other half. It wasn't easy because his body felt so heavy. Even simply raising his arm was taking everything from him. He didn't know what happened after he lost consciousness. However, he could feel the urgency in his other half's voice. If the confident and powerful version of him was acting like this, then it just proved how serious the situation was. With a roar that came from his very soul, Ethan used all of his strength and willpower to grab the hand that was extended to him. As soon as his hand touched his other half's own hand, he found himself being pulled hard. A moment later, Ethan's eyes opened abruptly in the real world, and his sight was welcomed by the ceiling above his head. Sebas, Tian. Ethan forced himself to speak and called out to the spirit of the stone trident. You're finally awake. Sebastian's voice, which was filled with relief and anxiety, reached his ears. There were shamans inside Ethan's room, so he didn't show himself because it might cause an uproar and aggravate the young man's injuries. Where is Lily? Ethan asked. She's in the room where the two of you always sleep together, but you can't do anything for her right now. Tell me, how are you feeling? Pain, lots of pain, Ethan replied. The shamans, who were guarding him, realized that he was awake and immediately gathered around him. They could hear Ethan talking to himself. but they thought that he was just feeling delirious due to his high fever. His body was still fighting the poison of the Dream Eater flower, and due to the severity of his injury, the poison had still not been completely eradicated from his system. "Don't worry, Tidebringer," Safiya said softly. "You are safe and will recover just fine." Ethan ignored her and simply focused on Sebastian's voice. "How is Lily?" Ethan asked. Safiya, who thought that Ethan was talking to her, bit her lip, unable to say anything. When she visited the young lady's room to check on her condition, she found that Lily had encased herself in a block of ice. The head shaman couldn't tell whether Lily was dead or alive because she didn't dare shatter the ice to check her condition. "She's dying," Sebastian replied. "If my estimate is right, she only has 2 more days to live." Ethan felt a lump blocking his throat after hearing Lily's current condition. Forcing himself to speak, he asked Sebastian if there was any way to save her. Sebastian didn't reply right away because he was weighing the options of Ethan's and Lily's survival. The primary requirement for Lily's survival was Ethan's safety because only he would be able to help her. However, they didn't have the luxury of waiting for the young man's recovery. By the time Ethan was finally able to stand by himself, the young lady would already be dead, which would leave him broken. A minute later, Sebastian sighed before appearing beside Ethan's bed, which surprised all the people inside the room. At first, the shamans thought that the necromancer had returned to take over Ethan's body. However, after they saw Sebastian's appearance, all of them canceled the spells that they were about to cast in his direction. Sebastian ignored them and talked to Ethan with a solemn expression on his face. "I have a vial that contains 5 droplets of the Tidebringer's blood," Sebastian stated. "If you consume this blood, it will help your bloodline become purer. The process will be extremely painful, and it is possible that you will receive more injuries on top of the existing ones, including the serious wound that you already have in your back." "I will not lie, Ethan. Your chances of surviving are very slim in your current condition. It is practically suicide. But this is the only thing that I can think of that might just save you and Lily. Are you willing to take a gamble?" Ethan didn't hesitate to say yes. At that exact moment, the flapping of wings was heard inside the room as a white raven landed on Ethan's chest. Before anyone could even do anything, Dantalion spoke using his telepathy, allowing everyone inside the room to hear him. "If you let Ethan directly drink the blood of the Tidebringer, his body will not be able to take it and implode," Dantalion said. "However, there is a way. If you will let me refine the magical powers that you have stored for the past century, I will convert them into healing energy that will allow him to withstand the changes that will occur in his body." Sebastian was pleasantly surprised by Dantalion's words. If there was really a way for Ethan to survive the painful process of absorbing the Tidebringer's blood, he wouldn't mind sharing the magical power he had saved up for the past 100 years. "I don't mind doing this," Sebastian nodded. "However, know this, Ethan. Once I use up this magical power, I will not be able to send you back to the future at the promised time. However, you will only have to wait 1.5 years at most before you can return to your own timeline." "I don't care," Ethan replied hoarsely. "I want to return with Lily." Sebastian glanced at Dantalion, and the white raven nodded his head. "Prepare yourself, Ethan," Sebastian said as he procured the vial. "This will hurt like hell." In order to ensure that not a drop of blood would be wasted, Sebastian gently pried Ethan's mouth open before pouring the contents of the vial. As soon as the blood entered Ethan's mouth, he felt a burning sensation rush down his throat, as if he had ingested fire. A blood-curdling shout escaped his lips as his skin cracked in several places, spraying out a blood mist that made the shamans panic. Dantalion then flapped his wings and hopped onto Sebastian's shoulder, absorbing his magical energy. A moment later, tendrils of blue light emanated from the white raven's body and flew towards the wounds that were opening up on the young man's body, stopping the bleeding and helping his body regenerate at a very fast rate. The shamans could only watch helplessly as Ethan writhed in pain. They could also hear the sound of bones cracking, and they assumed that the young man's bones were breaking apart before being forcefully reformed by Dantalion's healing ability. Ethan's screams echoed inside the room as he endured the torture of having his entire body remolded to accommodate the bloodline of a deity who had disappeared hundreds of years ago. Ethan's pained screams made the hearts of those who heard it tremble. Fortunately, the only ones that could hear it were the people inside the room. Sebastian surrounded the room with a soundproof barrier, which prevented those outside the room from hearing Ethan's suffering. Safia and the other shamans meaningfully exchanged glances with each other before forming a formation around Ethan. All of them chanted and used their healing powers to help the boy endure the pain that was racking his entire body. An hour later, Ethan's screams stopped. It was not because his suffering had ended, but because he had lost his voice from screaming repeatedly. Tears of blood fell from his eyes as he endured, and continued to endure. His bed was already drenched with blood, and if a medical practitioner was there to witness it, they would definitely wonder why Ethan still hadn't died from the blood loss. Second by painful second, minute by excruciating minute, and hours that felt like years finally came to a stop. The young man no longer screamed, even as blood and drool leaked from the corner of his mouth. His blood-soaked eyes stared at the ceiling in a daze, as if his mind had already been broken. Dantalion and Sebastian approached the bed and observed the young man's body, which was covered in blood. If not for the fact that his chest was rising up and down, everyone in the room might have thought that he was dead. Seeing his state, Safia and the other shamans were feeling very anxious. The poison of the Dream Eater plant had the power to erode and destroy a person's mind. Ethan's current state was very similar to the symptoms of a person whose consciousness had already been wiped clean, not reacting to anything. The White Raven, who was Ethan's spirit guide, looked at his master with a sad expression on his face. Even he didn't know if his master had managed to weather the storm that had threatened to destroy his mind and body. Just as everyone thought that the young man had failed to refine the Tide Bringer's blood, they saw his finger twitch. A moment later, Ethan's eyes recovered their clarity. His body felt so hot as if it was burning from within. But aside from that, he felt great strength and magical power washing over his body. The young man then slowly propped himself up from the bed and looked at his bloodied hands. He had no inkling that it was not only his hands, but also his entire body that was covered in blood, making him look like a monster that belonged to the necromancer's unholy army. Ethan then clenched his fists before closing his eyes. He was still trying to adapt to the newfound strength inside his body, failing to notice that everyone was looking at him with anxious expressions on their faces. A few minutes later, a ring of water appeared above his head like a halo. It then slowly lowered itself towards the young man's head, cleaning away the blood and other impurities that it touched. The halo of water moved downwards, cleaning Ethan's hair, his blood-stained face, his neck, chest, and everything below it. It even wiped away the blood that was on Ethan's bed, erasing the evidence of his suffering from existence. Only when the last drop of Ethan's blood was cleaned from the room did the halo of water disappear, leaving everyone in a daze. The young man in front of them had long blue hair that reached down to his waist. His youthful skin looked very radiant and healthy, as if he had just undergone an oil massage. The moment he opened his eyes, a ripple of magical power spread throughout the room, invigorating everyone within the area. Without another word, Ethan stood up from the bed and walked towards the door. His steps were a bit shaky, but his face was filled with determination. He only had one goal in mind, and that was to see Lily and save her before he once again lost consciousness. Seeing that Ethan was struggling to walk, Sebastian waved his hand and teleported the young man beside Lily's bed. He then erected a barrier in front of their room to prevent anyone from getting in the way of the young lady's treatment. Ethan stared at the block of ice that held the person who had helped him during his darkest moments. Lily's face was pale, and there were even blood stains at the corner of her lips. The bandage on her chest was dyed with blood, and there were several blue veins that could be seen in her skin, reminiscent of spider webs. Right now, the blue veins had covered nearly half of her body, making Ethan feel as if his heart was being pricked by a needle. He then placed his hands on top of the block of ice, melting it completely. The water droplets rose up in the air and flew outside of the window, leaving the young lady's skin dry, albeit still a little cold. As if sensing that her spell had been broken, Lily slowly opened her eyes to assess the situation. The moment she saw Ethan, a smile appeared on her pale face. She had already resolved herself to the possibility that the moment she sealed herself in a block of ice, she would never wake up ever again. Being able to see Ethan one last time made her feel that she was given an opportunity to say goodbye one last time before she passed away. "Ethan, I'm glad to see you safe," Lily said softly as she raised her hand to cup his face. "Can I ask you a favor? Please tell my family that I'm sorry. I wasn't able to meet their expectations. I tried so hard, and yet it wasn't enough." Tears started to form at the corner of Lily's eyes as she thought of her family members, whom she would never see again. "Stop talking," Ethan said as he wiped the tears from her eyes. "You're going to be fine. I've come to heal you." Lily smiled despite the tears that were blurring her vision. She thought that Ethan was just acting strong for her sake, so she decided to smile to not make him worry. "Ethan, thank you," Lily said softly. "I feel so cold. Can you hug me? Also, I don't mind if you give me one last kiss while you're at it." She was already feeling cold and lightheaded, which she believed to be the effect of the poison that had started to spread through her body once more, now that her hibernation had ended. Ethan cupped Lily's face and lowered his head. Just as he was about to kiss her, he lightly bit the tip of his tongue, drawing blood. The moment their lips met, Ethan slid his tongue inside the young lady's mouth. Lily, who was prepared to share one last passionate kiss with Ethan, tasted blood, which surprised her. However, she was already too weak to resist, so she just held onto Ethan tightly as the latter kissed her. The handsome young man's kiss was gentle, sweet, and bloody. "I didn't think that my last kiss would be like this," Lily thought. "Still, it's not a bad way to go." Suddenly, Lily felt a soothing warmth spreading inside her chest. It felt so comfortable that a sigh uncontrollably escaped her lips, forcing Ethan to pull back from his kiss. "Lily, drink my blood," Ethan said as he summoned a water blade to lightly cut the palm of his hand, drawing blood. "It will help you recover." Lily looked at him with confusion, but Ethan's affectionate gaze made her reluctantly nod her head. The blood on Ethan's palm flowed inside Lily's lips. It wasn't sweet and tasted a bit salty, and yet the more she drank, the better she felt. She no longer felt cold and lightheaded. Although she still felt weak, it wasn't to the point where she thought that she was about to die. Ethan continued to feed her his blood until her face regained its color. When he deemed that Lily was well enough to not need any more of his blood, the wound on his hand healed by itself. "Excuse me for a bit, Lily," Ethan said as he removed the bandages that were wrapped around Lily's chest. The young lady didn't make a move to stop him. In fact, a faint blush appeared on her face because her body was starting to heat up. This was the effect of Ethan's blood. It was forcing her body to increase its regeneration rate to help recover the blood that she had lost during the battle. The Tide Bringer's blood was powerful enough to serve as an antidote for even the strongest of poisons. The poison had already been cleansed from Lily's system, and the blue, spider-like veins had started to disappear from her skin. Ethan stared at the wound where the sword had pierced through and found it completely healed, not even leaving a scar behind. A sigh of relief escaped his lips before he finally found himself unable to keep his eyes open. The only thing that was keeping him conscious was his determination to save Lily. Now that she was no longer in danger, his body, which had gone through great pain and suffering, finally reached its limit. Lily, who noticed that the handsome young man was about to fall asleep, wrapped her arms around his head and pulled him closer to her chest. A few seconds later, Ethan's soft breathing was heard inside the room as his head rested peacefully between Lily's breasts. The young lady was also feeling drowsy due to the comfortable warmth that was washing through her body. Soon, she too fell asleep while holding onto Ethan tightly, as if she never wanted to let him go. She wasn't aware that not only did Ethan's blood help cure her from the poison and heal her injury, but it was also gradually strengthening her body, giving her a new kind of power that merged perfectly with her demi-wolf bloodline. Something soft pressed against Ethan's lips, and subconsciously, he opened his mouth in response. Through the haze in his mind, a faint memory appeared. A memory from when he was suffering from the backlash of his other half, taking over his body, after fighting against the 3 great tribes that attacked the stronghold of the allied tribes. That was the darkest moment of Ethan's life. He had lived a simple yet peaceful life, away from wars and other great conflicts. He had always been safe, never experienced true hunger, and had a roof above his head with a warm bed to sleep in at night. But all of those things changed when he stepped into the past with Lily. The young lady whom he had fought in the clash of manners had been with him through his times of weakness. Truth be told, after everything that he had experienced, Ethan thought that he was really pathetic. A weakling. A one-trick pony who could only depend on partial resonance to do the job for him. It was precisely the reason why, when his one trick didn't work against the Wendigo, a crack appeared in his heart, and through it, fear planted its seed. This seed took root and grew, slowly making him understand what he really was. A somewhat lucky person who managed to discover one of the secrets of the world and thought of himself as someone special. When the allied tribe referred to him as the Tide Bringer, it didn't make him feel special. On the contrary, he only felt increased anxiety because people were once again placing high expectations on his shoulders. Expectations that he didn't want yet were forced to shoulder due to the current circumstances. Sometimes, Ethan would think that life was unfair. Despite that, compared to others, he was aware that he was considered to be one of the lucky ones. He had done his very best and fought his hardest, but it still wasn't enough. If his other half hadn't woken him on time, perhaps, the warmth of the person who was embracing him right now would have ceased to exist. Tears welled up in his eyes, and soon fell from them. When the softness that was pressing on his lips disappeared, Ethan slowly opened his eyes and looked up at one of the most beautiful young ladies he had seen in his life. "Are these tears of joy?" Lily asked in a teasing tone. "Are you that happy that I secretly kissed you while you were sleeping?" Lily wiped the tears from his eyes before kissing him for the second time. She then looked at him with a devilish smile on her face, as if she had done something mischievous. Something warm spread inside Ethan's heart as he reached out to hold the back of her head and slowly pulled her to him. This time, Ethan was the one who initiated the kiss. Unlike the kiss they shared a few hours ago that was tinged with blood, this kiss tasted so sweet that Ethan couldn't get enough of it. He kissed Lily and kissed her some more, only stopping after a few minutes. When the kiss ended, Lily looked down at him with an affectionate look in her eyes that glowed faintly in the dimly lit room. An oil lamp burned at the side of the room, casting shadows over the 2 teenagers who were gazing at each other. Both of them were asleep for half a day, and it was only 2 hours until midnight. Half of the people inside the city were resting, while the other half were awake and keeping watch over the undead army on the other side of the shore. But at that moment, Ethan and Lily didn't care about them or the necromancer who nearly killed the 2 of them. Ethan propped himself up from the bed and took Lily's hand. He then led her toward the other room, where a private bath was waiting for them. When they were in the pyramid, they slept in the master bedroom that belonged to the Tide Bringer. It was a very spacious room, complete with all amenities including a small pool that overlooked the entire city from on top of the pyramid. There was some kind of protective magic placed on it, preventing anyone from seeing the pool from the outside. However, those who bathed in it wouldn't have their vision obstructed, and they would be able to see one of the most scenic views in the lands of Alastair. Unfortunately, this scenic view was nowhere to be found at the moment. Instead of star-filled skies, dark clouds covered the heavens. Instead of a prosperous city, only a glum sight could be seen. But for the two teenagers who were stripping off each other's clothes one by one, none of that mattered. Due to the refined blood of the tide bringer that flowed inside Ethan's veins, his body was naturally clean because it automatically dispersed any dirt that clung to him. Lily, who had also drank this blood, shared the same benefits. Her skin, as white as cream, was smoother than ever before. It also looked more youthful and healthier, increasing Lily's charm by several levels. Soon, the sound of water lightly splashing echoed silently in the night as Ethan and Lily waded into the pool. "You're beautiful, Lily," Ethan said as he gently washed her body with his hands, making sure to clean every nook and cranny. "Tell me something that I don't already know," Lily replied as she leaned her back against Ethan's chest after the latter finished washing her body. "I think I've fallen in love with you," Ethan commented. "You only think?" Lily asked in a teasing tone. "No, I have fallen in love with you." "Better." Lily turned around to look at Ethan before planting a kiss on his forehead. She then kissed his nose, his cheeks, and finally his lips. Although the night was cold, the flames of love ignited their bodies, stoking the feelings that had slowly bloomed after spending time with each other. As their lips passionately sought each other, their hands moved with wanton abandon, caressing each other, further fanning the flames that would soon blaze out of control. When Ethan felt Lily's hand moving downwards, he pulled back from their kiss. "Let's continue this in the bedroom," Ethan said hoarsely, which made Lily shyly nod her head. Walking hand in hand, the water droplets on their body dispersed as Ethan used his magic to dry their bodies. When they arrived at the bed, the two of them kissed again one more time before staring at each other's eyes. "My father has 5 wives," Lily said softly. At first, Ethan didn't understand why she said those words to him. But after looking at Lily's loving gaze, it finally dawned on him what she was trying to say. "Understood," Ethan replied before lowering the young beauty's soft and seductive body on the bed. No more words were needed to be spoken, for they had already said what they wanted to say. Both of them were inexperienced, but love found a way. The moment the two of them became one, a gasp escaped Lily's lips as she clenched the bed sheet made up of animal skin. Seeing her pained expression, Ethan didn't move right away and proceeded to kiss her cheeks, whispering words of love into her ears. Lily found the gesture of the handsome young man endearing, but she decided that it was time to make Ethan understand something. The young beauty held Ethan's hands and guided them to her breasts. She then looked at him with a challenging gaze, as if daring him to have his way with her. "I already told you this, but I'm not a damsel in distress," Lily said with a seductive smile on her face. "I guarantee you that I won't break easily, so please make love to me as if this is our last night together." Hearing her words, Ethan felt as if a string had snapped inside his mind. Flames of lust and desire burned inside the young man's chest as he embraced Lily entirely in her own words. Due to his enhanced physique, Ethan's body had gotten stronger and his stamina greater. Soon, the young lady under him realized that she might have awakened a monster that should have been left alone. Lily drew in a deep breath when Ethan started to move his hips and thrust into her. If she only knew how much he had been holding back in order to control his lust and love for her, she might have considered choosing better words to provoke him. However, what was done, so Lily could only helplessly cling to his body as he moved deeper inside of her with every thrust. It was a very sweet, intimate, and terrifying experience, but Lily had no regrets. She even thought that it would have been regrettable if she died, without experiencing something as profound as making love with the person whom she had developed feelings for. With her hands wrapped around his head and her legs intertwined around his waist, Lily's body shuddered. At the same time, Ethan clung to her body and groaned, releasing his seed deep inside of her. A minute later, both panted for breath, but they didn't let each other go, holding each other in a firm embrace. When they finally regained their composure, Lily whispered something in Ethan's ears that made the latter look at her with an affectionate gaze. "I didn't think that you would be the one to take my first time," Lily said as she cupped Ethan's face. "But I have no regrets. How about you?" "How can I regret loving you?" Ethan replied as he pressed his forehead over her own. "Lily, we will be together forever, right?" "If you can convince my father, then yes," Lily answered before pecking Ethan's lips. "But then again, even if you fail to convince him, it won't change anything. You are my first man, and you have already marked me as your woman. Our tribe has very strict rules regarding this matter, so even if my father beats you until you are half dead, make sure to continue loving me, okay?" Ethan smiled as he placed his palms on Lily's thigh, moving it higher. Actions speak louder than words, and that was what he did. He lowered his head and sank his fangs into Lily's tender breast before once again moving his hips. The handsome young man made love to his wife, again and again, until all the remaining fears inside her heart vanished without a trace. An hour after their lovemaking, Ethan covered Lily's naked body with a blanket and then left the room. He went to look for Safia and asked her to gather all the great chieftains, as well as the shaman of the Kobold clan. Seeing that Ethan had fully recovered from his injuries, the head shaman carried out his order with haste. Several minutes later, all the important people who had a say in this war gathered in the conference room. Ethan scanned their faces and saw hope, reverence, as well as a hint of anticipation. These were the people who had risked their lives to save him, as well as protect the city of Zentris while he was recovering. Toward these brave individuals, Ethan didn't talk in circles and got straight to the point. "I'll give you all an hour," Ethan stated. "Before sunrise, we will end this war and stick the necromancer's head on a pike." At first, everyone in the room was surprised by his declaration. However, this surprise didn't last long before all of them cheered. Their blood was boiling inside their chests because of how confident Ethan's words were. They could even feel the faint pressure radiating off his body, which made everyone assured that he was serious and that it was truly possible. "As you command, Tidebringer," Great Chieftain Adrian pressed his fist over his chest. "The allied tribes will be ready in an hour, as will the 3 great tribes. So will our Kobold clan." Ethan nodded his head in acknowledgement and dismissed everyone. The handsome young man was currently brimming with power due to the effect of the Tidebringer's blood essence and Sebastian's magical power that had been transferred into his body. He felt so strong right now that he believed that a single punch from him would be enough to shatter a big boulder. But that was not all. After making love with Lily, he felt as if his magical circuits were starting to come back to life. In the past, Ethan felt the magical powers he absorbed from a kiss slowly leak out of his body until nothing was left. This was why, regardless of whether he used the magic or not, the power he absorbed would only last for a day at the longest. "Although I could still feel some of my magical power leaking, it doesn't leak as much as before," Ethan thought. "Also, I can feel Lily's magic inside me right now, further boosting my strength." Due to this influx of power inside his body, Ethan decided to strike while the iron was still hot. If he delayed their counterattack, although he would still be powerful, it wouldn't be the same. Right now, he was at his peak, so his chances of defeating the necromancer were at their highest. For the time being, he set aside the fact that he and Lily wouldn't be able to get back home for a year. "As long as we can return together, it doesn't matter even if we are a bit late," Ethan mused as he made his way back to his room. When he opened the door, the young lady who was sleeping on the bed stirred. The blanket that he had used to cover her slid off the bed, making Ethan shake his head helplessly. Lily looked at the approaching Ethan in a daze. Several kiss marks could be seen on her skin, which were located on her neck, shoulder, collarbone, breasts, abdomen, thighs, and legs. Clearly, Ethan lost a bit of control as he made love to her, making his heart feel tingly inside. Lily then stood up from the bed, Her movements were a bit stiff. Ethan couldn't help but glance at the bloodstain on the bed sheet, which reminded him that he was Lily's first man. He couldn't stop himself from walking toward her, giving her a hug and planting a kiss on her forehead. "Does it still hurt?" Ethan asked. "A little," Lily replied as she rested her head on Ethan's shoulder. "Are you going to end this war now?" "Yes," Ethan replied as he held Lily close to him. "I don't want him to hurt you ever again." Lily smiled because Ethan's words made her heart skip a beat. She then looked up at the handsome young man with a determined look on her face. "I'm coming with you," Lily stated. She said it in a way that she would take no for an answer. "Understood," Ethan replied. "But before that, let's clean you up first." Without another word, Ethan carried the naked beauty in a Princess Carrie and went to the pool with her. This time, he didn't do anything aside from washing her properly. They had a war to win, and it was time to get serious. An hour later, Ethan stood outside the pyramid, glancing at the thousands of warriors who were looking up at him with resolute expressions on their faces. Lily stood a meter behind him, providing silent support to the man who would lead everyone for one last battle. "The end is near," Ethan stated. "I am not someone that likes to give long speeches, so I will only tell you this. We will win. So I ask all of you to fight one last time. For your tribe, for your freedom, and for your futures." Ahu, Ahu. The warriors of the allied tribes, the three great tribes as well as the Kobold clan, all raised their weapons, making their voices be heard. The noise was so loud that the necromancer heard it from the other shore. He wondered what was happening in the city of Zentris, but he didn't have to wait long because he noticed something that made the pupils in his eyes constrict. A giant wave crashed over the city, as if forcefully submerging it back to the depths of the lagoon. However, instead of being submerged underwater, the wave surged upwards and headed toward the shore, making the orcs, goblins, ogres, and trolls take a few steps back in fear. Within the darkness, the necromancer's gaze landed on a young man who was standing on top of the giant wave. He was holding a glowing trident in his hands, and his eyes were shining like blue embers that contained infinite power. Ethan was like a deity who had descended from the heavens to punish the mortals who had trampled on the things he held sacred. With a roar so powerful that it shook the lands of Alastair, Ethan pointed his trident forward, and the giant wave surged to do his bidding. "I hope you and your army know how to swim," Ethan sneered. "But then again, even if you can, it won't change anything." As the giant wave surged forward, countless warriors could be seen standing on its back. All of them looked at the undead army with bloodshot eyes as they shouted their war cries, with the intention of claiming his life. Ethan raised the sea god's trident as the forces of nature bowed to his will. The giant wave became bigger, rising up to 100 meters. It was at that moment when the Tide Bringer roared as summoned one of the creatures that followed his bidding. "Release the Kraken." As the giant wave neared the shore, something big emerged from inside it. Countless tentacles emerged from the giant wave and lashed out towards the land. In the past, it could only stay inside the lagoon to fight, but now that the sea had decided to invade the land, it would not stop until it crushed everything that stood in its way. The necromancer looked at Ethan with a calm expression on his face. Instead of being afraid, he felt excited to see that his prey seemed to have fully recovered from his injuries. Not only that, it seemed that he had also learned the legacy of the Tide Bringer, allowing him to control the power of the storm and sea and bend it to his will. "Perfect," the necromancer muttered as he gazed lock on Ethan. "I've waited so long for this moment." At that moment, the giant wave crashed on the land, obliterating everything in its path. The wave surged forward, and countless tentacles that belonged to the Kraken shattered the skeleton soldiers that were within its reach. The warriors of the tribes, as well as the Kobold clan, glided on the water with ease as if they had been doing it for years. They were like surfers using the water as their foothold, as they engaged the enemy orcs, goblins, trolls, and ogres. Ethan told them that they only needed to focus on attacking the necromancer's monster army, leaving the kraken and the other sea creatures that he had summoned to deal with the undead legion. Giant crabs that were 3 meters tall crawled toward the land and smashed the undead skeletons with their massive claws. Ethan's eyes were locked on the necromancer, who was hovering in the sky with a serious expression on his face. As long as the greatest threat on the battlefield wasn't defeated, this war would never end. Rising dragon, thrust, Ethan roared as he thrust his trident forward. A moment later, the water around him gathered and formed a long serpentine water dragon that unleashed a mighty roar. It then rose toward the sky with the intention of devouring its foe and shredding him to pieces. The necromancer sneered as he gathered his palms together, summoning a wall of bones that blocked the water dragon's attack. However, to the necromancer's surprise, the bone wall only lasted for a few seconds before shattering. Having broken through his defenses, the water dragon opened its mouth to devour him whole. The necromancer clicked his tongue and swapped places with one of the undead liches that were at the very rear of the formation. Right after he switched places with his subordinate, the pitiful lich was instantly obliterated by Ethan's attack. "Not bad, boy," the necromancer chuckled. "Looking at how strong and capable your body is makes me very happy." "Sorry, but I don't swing that way." Ethan raised his trident, and the water around him gathered to do his bidding. Aqua anguis. Countless water snakes charged at the necromancer, forcing him to take evasive actions by flying around the battlefield and shooting bone spears in Ethan's direction. The young man stood perfectly still as the water rose in front of him and turned into a wall of ice, stopping the momentum of the bone spears and holding them in place. Lily, who was standing by Ethan's side, didn't stand idly and unleashed her own barrage of ice attacks. Her hatred for the necromancer was no less than Ethan's, because the bastard had almost succeeded in killing her with a sneak attack from behind. The two teenagers knew that they were fighting a being who had lived for hundreds of years, and it went without saying that his battle experience superseded their own. Because of this, they decided to work together in order to end his tyranny once and for all. Rising dragon thrust. Glacis draconis. It was not only Ethan who was overflowing with power right now. Lily, who had absorbed his blood, was now stronger than ever before. But that was not the only reason why her strength had surged exponentially. After the two of them had become one, Lily had received the mark of the Tide Bringer on her body, granting her the power of the water element. Although it wasn't as strong as her ice elemental magic and her demi-wolf form, it was a great supplementary magic that not only strengthened her ice magic, but also allowed her to turn any body of water into ice that she could control like it was one of her limbs. The serpentine-like water and ice, dragons roared at the same time and used a pincer attack against the necromancer. Knowing that he was unable to dodge the combination attack from the two teenagers, the necromancer once again swapped bodies with a lich that was at the very back of his undead army. He only had 4 of these liches, which were born from the bodies of the 4 sorcerers that the necromancer had killed in the past. They were all among his strongest subordinates, and seeing them die one after the other left the necromancer feeling quite annoyed. "As long as I succeed in taking over his body, everything will be worth it," the necromancer thought. The only problem was that, with Lily guarding Ethan from the side, it was terribly difficult to approach the ladder without risking damage to his own soul. At that moment, the blue jewel in the center of the circlet that Lily wore glowed brightly. This was a gift given to her by Sebastian for officially becoming Ethan's true lover. The circlet was an artifact that was called Sea Queen's Tear. Just as the name implied, the blue gem in the center of the circlet was shaped like a teardrop. It had the ability to strengthen any water-based attack, keep its wearer clear-headed, and allow its user to see the aura and the amount of magic power that a person possessed. Lily frowned when she saw the vile aura and magic power that was radiating from the body of the necromancer. In her eyes, The necromancer's unholy aura and magic power looked like a black-red fireball that was nearly 20 meters tall. Her and Ethan's own auras and magical powers were just a little more than half of what the necromancer was excluding, making her understand that, in terms of raw magical power, their enemy surpassed the two of them combined. Controlling the water and ice dragons, the two teenagers once again attacked their foe, but this time, the necromancer was ready. Clasping his hands together, all the undead on the battlefield found themselves flying in his direction. "I'll show you, brats, my true power," the necromancer roared as the undead monsters merged with his body, creating a 30-meter-tall bone giant whose eyes burned crimson. The bone giant summoned two swords enhanced with necrotic energy and used them to block the attack of the two dragons that were descending from the sky. The moment the dragons collided with the necromancer, a shockwave erupted, blowing away everything within the 300-meter radius of the bone giant. A moment later, the sound of ice breaking spread in the surroundings as the water and bone dragon exploded at the same time. "Is that all you got, Tidebringer?" the necromancer sneered. Ethan didn't say anything and simply pointed his trident toward the heavens, his eyes radiating a brilliance that shone in the darkness. Lightning streaked in the sky, and thunder roared like countless lions that were about to charge at their foe. "The power I wield will obliterate one and all," Ethan declared. "Pierce through the darkness and hear my call." A crackling sound sounded from the heavens, and the entire night sky was illuminated by countless lightning bolts that were about to descend to the mortal world. Thunder God's wrath. An ear-splitting rumble reverberated throughout the battlefield as countless lightning bolts landed on the giant bone skeleton, bathing it in its primordial might. Earth, water, wind, and fire. The four primary elements that countered each other to keep the balance of nature. All of them could be very destructive in their own right, but there was one element that had both speed, strength, and more destructive power that could pass through almost any defense. It was none other than lightning, the bane of evil things in the world, and one that was quickest to strike those who offend their wielders. Only a few individuals could wield this power, and all of them had the ability to call forth destructive storms that could sweep over the land, illuminating night as if it were day and piercing through their foes as if they weren't wearing any defensive armor. A blood-curdling scream spread on the battlefield as the necromancer found himself being smitten by heavenly lightning. He wasn't afraid of Ethan's mastery over the water element or Lily's ice magic that could freeze those that were hit by her attacks. Although he had heard that the Tidebringer was a deity of sea and storm, he thought that, at most, the teenage boy could only call forth a giant wave as well as summon sea creatures to fight for him. It wasn't within his expectations that the young man, whose body he coveted, was able to wield the power of lightning, which only a true deity could call forth. What he didn't know was that the only reason why Ethan was able to call forth this destructive attack was due to the power that Sebastian had passed into his body. The stone trident had been absorbing magical energy from its surroundings for hundreds of years, which it was saving for an attack as payback against its master, who had left it alone for centuries. Also, after making love with Lily, the magical circuits in Ethan's body had truly started to recover, which surprised the young man. Not only had they started to awaken, but a good part of them were also repaired, decreasing the leakage of magical energy from his body. This allowed Ethan to reinforce all of his magical attacks and strengthen them with the power of his legacy and bloodline. Aside from the Tidebringer's legacy, there was another legacy that had also started to awaken inside his body. This was the original legacy he possessed, which he was still unaware of. Even so, his other half made sure to take advantage of Ethan's current strength and helped the teenage boy in his battle, supporting him from within their sea of consciousness. All the fighting seemed to have come to a complete stop, as everyone lost their sense of hearing. Blood oozed out of the ears of the orcs, goblins, trolls, and ogres. Although Ethan's allies didn't suffer the same injury as their foes, they all still lost their sense of hearing, forcing them to retreat for the time being. Right now, they knew that no matter what they did, the outcome of the war ultimately hung on who would emerge victorious between the necromancer and the two teenagers. When the light completely receded, all that remained of the giant bone skeleton was a pile of ashes. However, Ethan and Lily didn't put their guard down, looking around their surroundings to search for the traces of their foe. Suddenly, a black mist rose up beside Ethan's right foot and swiftly flew towards his open lips, making the young man tremble. Lily, who was a step too late in noticing what had happened, could only look in horror as the young man beside her started to scream in pain while holding his head. Black aura swirled around Ethan's body as the necromancer tried to overwhelm him with his magical and spiritual power, which was the only advantage he had over the teenage boy. Suddenly, a powerful gust of wind surged from Ethan's body and blew the young lady away. Fortunately, the young lady regained her balance midair and landed on the ground unhurt. A black tornado began to rage where Ethan stood, preventing anyone from coming over to help him. While this was happening, a great battle was being waged inside Ethan's sea of consciousness. The young man exchanged blows with the old necromancer, resulting in loud explosions with each strike. But the latter was as slippery as an eel, evading or deflecting his attacks with ease. The two were battling using their soul power, and Ethan found himself at a great disadvantage. It had only been a few months since he had entered Brynhildr Magical Academy, and he still hadn't learned how to defend his mind from mind and soul attacks. Even so, after absorbing the blood essence of the Tidebringer, his mental and soul strength was greater than ever before. Unfortunately, no matter how intimidating a professional bodybuilder was, he was still not a match against a professional boxer who knew how to throw punches that were meant to knock out his target. This was the same battle that was happening inside Ethan's sea of consciousness. Ethan was the bodybuilder, and the necromancer was the boxer. The necromancer had spent most of his life subduing his enemies by attacking their minds. It didn't matter how strong they were physically, because he had no intention of exchanging blows with his opponent. His specialty was soul attacks, and right now, the old necromancer was in his element. After several exchanges, the old necromancer finally found an opportunity to land a blow on Ethan's chest, making the young man stagger. "You're 100 years too early to defeat me, boy." The old necromancer grabbed Ethan's neck and lifted him off the ground with a sneer on his face. "Thank you for giving me the perfect vessel. I will make sure to use it to conquer the world." The necromancer laughed as he tightened his hold on Ethan's neck, choking the young man and making him unable to breathe properly. Ethan grabbed hold of the necromancer's hand with both hands as he struggled to pry his grip off his neck. He even kicked the necromancer repeatedly, using all of his strength, but the latter only raised a spiritual barrier to negate his attacks. Soon, Ethan's resistance weakened as he lay limp in the necromancer's grasp, unable to muster any more strength. Seeing that his opponent had been thoroughly weakened, the necromancer snarled as he raised his voice in triumph. "Your soul is mine." The necromancer then opened his mouth in order to absorb Ethan's soul. However, before he could succeed with his plan, a hand grabbed hold of his neck from behind in a vice grip. "Wrong," Ethan's other half sneered. "It is your soul that is mine." This time, it was the old necromancer's turn to desperately struggle, but no matter what he did, he couldn't pry off the hand that was holding him from behind. He couldn't even turn his head because he was firmly locked in place. Ethan, who lay on the ground, opened his eyes and took a deep breath. His gaze landed on the necromancer, whose bloodshot eyes were looking at him in disbelief, anger, desperation, and fear. "I'm a good actor, no?" Ethan lightly rubbed his neck as he propped himself off from the ground. "Seriously, you took your sweet time. What if he actually succeeded in absorbing my soul?" The other Ethan chuckled. "Since I am here, it is impossible for that to happen," the other Ethan replied before strengthening his grip on the necromancer's neck. "This is checkmate." With a loud crack, the other Ethan crushed the necromancer's neck, making the latter fall limp in his arms. A moment later, the necromancer's soul turned into a black mist that the other Ethan absorbed through his mouth. Ethan watched this scene from start to end with a calm expression on his face. Truth be told, he and his other half had already set a trap for the necromancer, whom they knew would try to possess his body at the most optimal moment. The plan was that Ethan would distract the necromancer and allow the latter to think that he had the upper hand, while his other half would attack the necromancer from behind when the latter lowered his guard. Since the necromancer didn't know that Ethan's legacy, which could be considered another soul, was inside the young man's sea of consciousness, he had lost the battle the moment he tried to possess Ethan's body. "Is it over?" Ethan asked his other half. "It is over," the other Ethan nodded. Outside the raging black tornado that prevented anyone from getting close, Lily and the allied tribes were getting restless. Several minutes had already passed since the necromancer had possessed the young man, and they were worried that the Tidebringer would lose in a battle of souls. After what seemed like years, the black tornado disappeared, allowing everyone to see a young man who was standing still with his eyes staring in front of him in a daze. Lily didn't hesitate and appeared in front of Ethan. Her trembling hands cupped his face, and her worried gaze looked at his dazed eyes, which seemed to have no life in them. "Ethan," Lily said softly, half afraid that the one who answered her would not be the teenage boy she loved, but the evil necromancer who had successfully taken over her lover's body. She stared at his face for nearly 2 minutes before the young man's body shuddered. A moment later, light and life returned to his eyes as he looked at the beautiful lady who had taken a gamble to stand in front of him, despite not knowing who was currently in possession of his body. "Lily," Ethan said with a smile, "it's over." The young lady's lips trembled as she kept looking at Ethan's eyes, trying to see if she was indeed looking at her lover or the monster that had ended his life. Understanding her fears, Ethan wrapped his arms around her body and kissed her forehead. He then placed his hand behind her head and pulled her close to him. "Don't worry, it is me," Ethan stated, trying to prevent his voice from breaking. "We won." It was only at this moment that Lily finally confirmed that Ethan had indeed emerged victorious from the battle. Without caring that countless people were looking at them, she stood on tiptoes and kissed his lips, making the warriors of the allied tribes hoot and cheer for them. The monsters who saw this immediately ran away, in fear that the young man would wipe them all out for siding with his enemy. Ethan didn't have time to run after these monsters. Right now, for him, kissing the young lady in front of him was more important than cleaning them up. With a hearty laugh that came from his heart, he lifted Lily and a Princess Carrie and called a wave to send him back to the city of Zentris. Now that they had won the war, it was time to celebrate. And what better way to celebrate than making love to his wife, who was more than willing to accept the fiery love that would soon drown her in countless waves of passion. A month had passed since the battle against the necromancer ended. After getting rid of the greatest threat in the lands of Alester, a formal alliance between the 3 great tribes, the allied tribes, the nomad tribe, and the Kobold clan was formed. This alliance was made possible due to the Tidebringer's initiative. As the deity who had been protecting the land for hundreds of years, their belief in him was unwavering, and they treated all of his word as law. After so much death and suffering, an uneasy peace settled within the land. Everyone took this time to heal and mourn for the losses of their loved ones who had died due to the necromancer's schemes. Ethan and Lily had just arrived at the gates of the Scarlet Citadel after being brought there by an elite group of warriors and shamans from the 3 great tribes and the Kobold clan. Truth be told, they wanted to see for themselves that the necromancer wasn't hiding any other surprises that he might have failed to use during the war after his death. They were afraid that if they overlooked this matter, it would bite them in the back once things settled down. "Open the door," Ethan ordered. Immediately, the warriors pushed the gates open. As if waiting for that moment, 2 bone golems, both 3 meters tall, charged in their direction. But before they could even reach the group of warriors, Ethan and Lily simultaneously made a move to intercept them. Soon, the sound of bones cracking echoed inside the citadel as the 2 bone golems' bodies shattered. Ethan's trident and Lily's kick were more than enough to obliterate the 2 guards that were prearranged to automatically attack any intruder that entered their master's abode. Before the warriors and shamans could breathe a sigh of relief, they heard countless clinking sounds that were coming from the stairs. "I guess he didn't bring all of his subordinates with him," Lily said with a smile. Ethan nodded. "Fortunately, they are all small fries." Without another word, the 2 charged at the skeleton soldiers who were left to defend the Scarlet Citadel. The battle lasted for nearly half an hour before every undead monster was finally cleared out. After double-checking that there were really no other monsters that might launch a sneak attack on them, the group split up to explore the tower. Ethan and Lily continued to climb the stairs until they reached the highest point of the tower, while their escorts spread out on the different floors to check every room. When they arrived at the topmost floor, Ethan and Lily found themselves in front of a steel door, which radiated with magical power. The 2 glanced at each other before nodding their heads at the same time. Aquapila. Glacis spiculum. A water ball and an ice spike flew from the tip of Ethan's trident and Lily's wand, hitting the door at the same time. The magical door had a trap imbued in it. If someone aside from the necromancer were to touch it, they would be paralyzed on the spot. Although the 2 teenagers didn't know about this, they were aware that touching the door was a bad move. With this train of thought, they decided to just blow it apart to be on the safe side. The steel door fell to the floor as if it were hit by a truck that forced it off its hinges. Ethan entered the room first, followed by Lily. When they were finally inside, they noticed countless scrolls arranged neatly on several shelves and an obsidian water bowl sitting in the center of a golden table. Ethan walked up to one of the shelves and unfurled one of the scrolls on it. After skimming through its contents, Ethan understood that the scroll was actually a magical scroll that explained how to strengthen a necromancer's magic and soul power by bathing in the blood of hundreds of chaste maidens. Ethan didn't hesitate and unfurled another scroll, and this one depicted a way to kill a person and absorb their soul to increase a person's lifespan. All of the scrolls were unholy spells that taught people how to become necromancers. "Ethan," Lily called out as he looked at the young man whose face had turned grim. "This mustn't fall in the hands of other people. Although this might not affect us when we return to the future, it's possible for these to give birth to another necromancer. We can't let that happen." "You're right," Ethan replied. "We should burn this all." But before Ethan could do what he said, a voice inside his head spoke up. "I have a better idea," Ethan's other half stated. "Let me handle it." Ethan reluctantly agreed to allow his other half to take over his body for a while. The handsome young man's eyes turned purple as he gazed at the dozens of ancient scrolls that were left inside the necromancer's workshop. Raising his hand, the other Ethan snapped his fingers, and all the scrolls were burned with purple flames. However, instead of turning into ashes, the scrolls turned into purple lights and flew towards Ethan's forehead. When the deed was done, Ethan's eye color returned to normal, which made Lily sigh in relief. Although she didn't know much about Ethan's other half, she could tell that he was a very dangerous existence. Fortunately, she also knew that the danger that he posed wasn't directed at her or any of the handsome young man's family members, friends, and acquaintances. This danger was to the enemies that would dare to harm him, and perhaps her as well. After making sure that no other scrolls survived the purge, Ethan walked towards the center of the room where the golden table and the obsidian bowl were. "This is a scrying bowl," Lily explained. "This must be what he used to spy on everyone within the lands of Alastair." Ethan nodded his head in agreement before lightly tapping the surface of the water with his fingertip. A ripple broke the calm of the water, and an image appeared on its surface. he saw the warriors exploring one of the rooms and opening a crate filled with iron ores. The scene changed, and it then showed the kobold shaman flipping the pages of a leather journal, which served as the necromancer's diary. After getting an understanding of how the scrying bowl worked, Ethan stored it inside Fortis Dud's magical ring, which also served as a storage ring. An hour later, everyone met at the base of the citadel. Dozens of chests filled with treasures, ores, precious metals, and unpolished gemstones were piled up at the main entrance. Simply put, they had ransacked everything of value from the Scarlet Citadel, leaving nothing precious behind. "Let's go back and divide these treasures with everyone," Ethan stated. The warriors and the shamans nodded before they carried all the chests back to the wagons that they had brought on their journey. Ethan and Lily would be stuck within the lands of Alastair until Sebastian had gathered enough magical power to send them back home. According to the Guardian, it would take him a little more than a year to do this. Although a year was a long time, Ethan and Lily were fine with it. If Sebastian hadn't used his stored magical power to help Ethan endure the power of the Tide Bringer's blood essences, the young man would have died, which would have also indirectly killed Lily. For them, waiting for a year was better than dying, so they took things in stride. They helped the tribes within the lands of Alastair deal with the aftermath of the battle while waiting for their return trip back to the present. A desperate screech sounded throughout the White Forest as Ethan pulled his trident out from a black boar's back. As the 3-meter-tall magical beast crashed to the ground with a loud thud, Ethan clasped his hands in prayer. After his traumatic experience a year ago in killing people, he vowed to himself that he would never take the life of others, whether it be magical beasts or even monsters, unless it was absolutely necessary for self-defense and for survival. It was very easy to lose yourself in killing others once you got used to it. This was why Ethan created an anchor for himself. He did not want to go down that path. He didn't want to be like the necromancer who sacrificed the lives of others in order to strengthen himself. And neither did he want to be like the barbarians of the north, who simply killed others for sport or to expand their territories. With a wave of his hand, he stored the black boar's body inside his storage ring and whistled. A moment later, a black panther jumped out of a tree and landed beside him. "To the city, Grumpy," Ethan said as he jumped on the black panther's back. The black panther whined, but after Ethan lightly patted its back, the magical beast ran through the forest floor and made its way back to the city of Zentris. This panther belonged to Rex, which he borrowed from time to time whenever he wanted to hunt in the White Forest. Naturally, Ethan only hunted for food. When the panther entered the city, it broke into a casual stroll, making Ethan shake his head helplessly. The black panther could be moody at times, and when it didn't feel like listening to Ethan, it would just do whatever it wanted to do. This was why Ethan called it Grumpy. When the people saw the handsome young man, they all greeted him with smiles. But at the same time, there was sadness in their gaze that they just couldn't hide no matter what. It had been a little more than a year since they regained a semblance of peace in the land of Alastair. And after hearing Ethan's announcement that he would be leaving tonight, the allied tribes decided to hold a grand feast in his honor. Because of this, Ethan went to the White Forest to hunt a boar in order to add to the food that they would be partaking in tonight. "You're back, Ethan," Rex said with a smile. "Did Grumpy not listen to you today?" The black panther growled, as if it was taken aback by Rex's assumption. Ethan chuckled and only patted the panther's back before climbing down from it. "Grumpy has been good," Ethan replied. "Although there's also the fact that he chased away 3 of the boars that I saw early in the day. I would have returned sooner if not for that." The black panther used its head to push Ethan away, as if trying to stop him from saying more. Rex laughed at this scene and chatted with Ethan for a bit more, after which the blue-haired boy left. He still had to hand over his contribution to the festivities at the Grand Kitchen, where most of the hunted creatures were currently being skinned, bled, and prepared for the festival that would begin in a few hours. After delivering his prey, Ethan returned to the pyramid to look for Lily. he found his wife at the center of a group of young ladies and aunties who liked to gossip. Since there was no form of entertainment in this era, the beautiful young lady had developed a hobby of listening to the latest gossip and news within the city of Zentris. Naturally, most of the gossip was about Ethan not taking another wife aside from Lily. The Ethan of today was very different from the Ethan a year ago. Back then, he could still be considered an innocent teenage boy. But now, he was considered a young man who was the apple of all the single ladies. All of them dreamed of becoming one of his lovers or even concubines. When Ethan and Lily arrived in the lands of Alester, the young man's body was lean and toned. Now, his body was truly like a deity that had descended from the heavens. His chiseled muscles exuded strength and manliness that made the ladies who saw his naked, upper body swoon. Lily, who got to enjoy this godly body nearly every night, couldn't help but feel pride because these ladies were admiring her man. Truth be told, with how often they did it, if it weren't for the fact that she had been taking the contraceptive potion crafted by Safia once a week, she might have already become pregnant with his child. Although she didn't mind if she did indeed get pregnant, she also understood that neither of them was ready to take this next step in their relationship. In fact, there were times when they talked about getting married while they were in the lands of Alester. But in the end, the two of them decided to wait until they were back in their own time. They still had unfinished business, and they knew that they still had a bit more growing up to do in order to become responsible adults. Although they still hadn't formally had a marriage ceremony, both knew that they didn't need to do such a thing to confirm their feelings for each other. Of course, one of the reasons why Lily didn't want to get married right away was due to the fact that she felt that she had cheated her way into Ethan's heart. She knew that Chloe and Luna liked the handsome young man. If not for the fact that she had been trapped in the past with Ethan, those two girls or Ethan could have confessed their feelings to each other, making either of them his first lover instead of her. But since what was done was already done, Lily had no intention of backing off. When she told Ethan that his father had 5 wives, it meant that she was fine with Ethan having wives aside from her. The teenage boy understood this part and accepted Lily's determination. Now that they were only hours away from going back to their own time, the young lady felt happy and reluctant at the same time. Happy because she would be able to see her family again, and reluctant because the time that she had spent alone with Ethan was about to end. She was quite certain that the moment her handsome lover returned to the academy, all the ladies would go gaga over how manly he had become. How could someone ignore his handsome face, his deity-like body, his charisma, as well as his long blue hair she had personally tied up with a red ribbon before he left to hunt in the White Forest? Also, there was one more thing that Lily loved about Ethan. It was none other than the long scar on his back that extended from his shoulder to his lower waist. This was the scar that he had received after saving her life. For some reason, despite his powerful regenerative ability, the scar didn't heal and remained in place. Ethan didn't mind it one bit because, for him, it was a badge of honor that he received for protecting the young lady that he loved. As the two left to return to their living quarters, the single ladies looked at Lily's retreating back with envy and jealousy. If only Ethan agreed to make them his concubines, they would become the happiest women in the world. Several hours later, the festive symphony of a grand celebration sounded as soon as the sun had set. Members of the 3 great tribes, the nomad tribes, as well as the kobolds, arrived at the city of Zentris to participate in the celebration to send the tide bringer back to his home. Ethan and Lily didn't tell anyone that they would be traveling back to the future. Instead, the young man told them that he would return to his home in the sea, taking Lily with him, and would not be appearing ever again. Although everyone was saddened to hear this news, they knew Ethan had his reasons for leaving. So they decided to give him a grand send-off to alleviate the sadness that they were feeling. Ethan laughed, drank, ate, and even danced alongside the warriors. He even allowed himself to drink a little bit of their wine, causing his face to flush a bit. Of course, Lily was there to ensure that he didn't drink more than he should to prevent any unnecessary things from happening. After all, leaving a drunk, handsome young man around hundreds of single ladies who wanted to eat him up was a recipe for trouble. Hours later, when almost everyone was snoring due to the effect of the wine, Ethan and Lily walked hand in hand to reach the top of the pyramid where the stone trident stood, waiting for them. They didn't bother to say goodbye because they knew that it wasn't necessary. Both of them wanted to prevent getting teary-eyed as they left the people who had gotten close to them during the year that they had stayed in the city of Zentris. Dentalion landed on Ethan's shoulder and lightly nudged the young man's head. Ethan smiled and lightly brushed the white raven's chest. His spirit guide had helped him a lot on this expedition in the past, and without his loyal companion, he might have suffered a fate worse than death. "I hope you enjoyed your vacation." Sebastian appeared in front of the two with a smile. "Yes, we enjoyed it very much," Lily replied. "Thank you, Sebastian." Ethan nodded his head in agreement. "Sebastian, about the city." Ethan wasn't able to finish the rest of what he was going to say because the Guardian had raised his hand to stop him. "It's already done, Ethan," Sebastian stated. "This city will no longer be submerged underwater, and it will remain that way forever. The allied tribe can stay here for as long as they want, and any other tribe for that matter. After all, I am also leaving this place." "You're leaving this place?" Ethan blinked. "Where are you going?" Sebastian chuckled. "Where else? To the future, of course." "You're coming with us." Ethan was pleasantly surprised by this sudden turn of events. "Of course. Do you think I'd want to stay in this place for another 100 years? Sebastian snorted. "I'd die of boredom, even though I can't technically die in that manner, but you understand, right?" The Guardian of the city of Zentris clapped his hands twice, and the sea god's trident materialized in front of him. The stone trident glowed and shrank until it turned into a blue diamond that was an inch long. It then flew towards the sea god's trident and embedded itself at the base of its three-pronged tip, right at the very center. With this, even if you return to your present time, you will be able to manipulate any body of water. This includes water-based spells. Right now, you can use magic for 3 days after being kissed by a witch or any lady with magical power. While it is better than before, your magical circuits are still damaged, and your magic power is still leaking. Being able to use water magic, as long as there is water around, will compensate for your lack of magical power on the days when you cannot kiss your beautiful wife. Sebastian winked at Lily, which made the latter smile. "I look forward to our future adventures together," Sebastian said as he patted Ethan's shoulders. He then merged with the blue gem on the sea god's trident and told Ethan what to do. Ethan pointed the trident in front of him, and the blue gem glowed with power. A moment later, a white portal appeared in front of them, which was similar to the nexus that they had entered when they were running away from the wizards that wished to capture them. Ethan and Lily glanced at each other and smiled. Their hands intertwined together as they both took a step forward. Regardless of what would happen in the future, the time they had spent together over the past year was filled with beautiful memories that they had created together. "Lily," Ethan said softly as he paused before entering the portal. "I may not have plenty of opportunities to say this once we return to the academy, so I'll say it now. I love you." The beautiful young lady stood on tiptoes and kissed Ethan's lips. "And I love you," Lily replied after pulling back. "Don't worry, I'll make sure to sneak inside your room from time to time in Dud Manor so you won't be lonely." Ethan chuckled before he planted a kiss on his lover's forehead. "Let's go, Lily. It's time to go home." The two held each other's hand firmly as they took that final step. They didn't know what was waiting for them on the other side of the Nexus, but whatever it was, or wherever they would be, as long as they were together, everything would fall into place. After the two teenagers passed through the portal, the Nexus flickered out of existence, leaving the lands of Alester with a legend that would be passed on for countless generations to come. A legend that would spread far and wide, and make the entire world hear of the tales of the handsome deity that would appear and disappear with the coming and going of the tides. All right, guys, this marks the end of Volume 1, Resonance of the Heart. Please comment if you want the Volume 2 of the saga. I will make the next part when this video gets at least 10 likes and 100 views. So please, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now it's time for important matters. I want to know if I should continue with these 8-12-hour video, cause now my classes are starting again and don't have enough time. So would you guys mind videos that are 2 to 4 hours long? Please comment. I will do as you guys suggest. 2 to 4 hour videos will come within 7 days from now on. But if you want 8 to 12 hour long videos, they could only come every 10 days. Please let me know. With that said, I'll see you in the next one.